Maya Rodriguez stood behind the long counter of the Morning Star diner, carefully refilling coffee cups for a row of regulars who had long ago accepted her quiet smiles as part of their daily routine. At 26, with wavy dark hair pinned back in a loose bun and warm brown eyes that seemed to hold a million thoughts, she often felt invisible in the bustle of clattering dishes and the aroma of frying bacon. This was the life she knew, gritty, honest, and relentlessly ordinary. Still, behind her calm exterior, a steady pulse of longing beat like a drum she couldn't ignore. She dreamed of writing. For as long as she could remember, words had been her shelter, her way of carving meaning out of chaos. But those aspirations were tucked into a scuffed notebook she carried in her worn canvas purse, the one she kept stashed under the counter. Occasionally, in the lull between the breakfast rush and the midday trickle, she would slip it out and scribble down a few lines, half poems, fragments of stories, observations about the people who sat hunched over their coffee. She never shared them with anyone but Sophia, her co-worker and best friend, who insisted Maya had something special. Maya, however, had found it easier to believe in the work of her hands, pouring coffee, wiping counters, than to trust her own voice on a page. "Maya, you okay?" Sophia asked, brushing past her with a plate of pancakes balanced on her forearm. Sophia was 28, a little taller than Maya, with curly hair dyed a vivid copper that matched her feisty spirit. She and Maya had been friends since Maya first started at the diner 2 years ago, bonding over exasperating customers and shared hopes for something beyond the retro wallpaper. "I'm fine, just thinking," Maya replied, turning her attention back to the coffee pot. She stole a glance at the clock ticking on the wall. It was nearly 11, and the morning rush had subsided into a lazy hush. Sophia eyed the tattered notebook peeking out from Maya's purse. "Writing again," she teased with a grin. "Well, keep going. One day these lines might turn you into a literary star, and then I can say I knew you when." Maya rolled her eyes affectionately. "Sure, known by dozens worldwide for her diner poems." "Right." Despite her sarcasm, her cheeks flushed with the faintest thrill at the thought of someone, anyone, reading her words. A faint bell rang at the entrance as the door swung open. Maya's heart skipped a beat when she saw him. Christian Cole, the diner's most notorious regular. He was always impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his blonde hair combed back so not a strand was out of place. Something about his cool blue stare and stiff posture set him apart from everyone else who wandered into the Morning Star. He exuded money, power, and more than a hint of distaste for his surroundings. Unlike the chatty retirees or friendly families, he never bothered with small talk or even a polite greeting. He simply found his usual booth, second from the corner, sat down, and waited to be served. Each time Maya approached, he would utter his order in a clipped tone, check his phone incessantly, and hardly look up. Today was no different. Sighing softly, Maya grabbed her notepad and made her way over. "Good morning, Mr. Cole. Can I... coffee?" "Black," he said without lifting his gaze from the smartphone in his hand. His curt interruption hung in the air like a rude punctuation mark. She stifled an urge to roll her eyes. "Sure thing," she mumbled, turning on her heel. There was no point in expecting courtesy from this man. She had overheard talk that he was a big deal in the tech world, CEO of something called Cole Innovations. But to Maya, he was just another demanding customer who made her job feel harder than it should. "You know, you don't have to let him walk all over you," Sophia muttered once Maya returned to the counter. Maya shrugged. "He's not worth the energy. It's easier just to do my job." Before Sophia could reply, a gentle voice called from a corner table. "Maya, dear, would you mind bringing an extra napkin?" Mrs. Henderson, one of Maya's favorite customers, offered a kind smile. She was in her 70s, with grey curls pinned back neatly, and she always made a point to ask how Maya's day was going. Maya brought the napkin and lingered for a moment. Mrs. Henderson's presence was a welcome warmth amidst the diner's clamour. She often encouraged Maya in small, heartfelt ways, sometimes by asking if Maya had any new poems to share. And each time, Maya would blush and say that she was still working on them. Today, Mrs. Henderson placed a gentle hand on Maya's wrist. "I can tell your mind is somewhere else, dear. Don't keep your dreams all locked away. You never know who might need to hear what you have to say." Maya's smile faltered briefly. She thought about the story she'd been working on, the one about a waitress who wanted to find her voice. "I'll keep that in mind," she whispered, feeling a familiar ache of possibility blend with the usual swirl of self-doubt. She returned to Christian's booth, setting the coffee before him. He merely glanced at her, a flicker of acknowledgement in his cool eyes, then resumed tapping on his phone. She suppressed a sigh, her thoughts drifting to all those unspoken words waiting in her notebook. Maybe someday she'd break free from this routine. Maybe someday her name would be recognized for what she wrote, not what she served. Long after Christian left, she stood behind the counter, gazing at the empty booth and wondering what drove him to treat people with such indifference. Across the diner, Mrs. Henderson finished her meal and waved goodbye. Sophia offered Maya a quick hug before clocking out. The lunch rush would begin soon, and Maya would be back on her feet, delivering food, clearing plates, living in the middle of everyone else's chaos. Yet, in that moment of stillness, she clung to the spark in her heart. Her dreams weren't gone, they were just tucked away, waiting for the right moment to burst into life. And as she stared at the spot where Christian Cole had been, she couldn't shake the feeling that change was coming, maybe faster than she realized. Early the next morning, Maya peered through the diner's front window at a line of grey clouds drifting across the Austin skyline. The weather felt like a reflection of her mood, unsettled, thick with unspoken tension. She let out a quiet sigh, bracing herself for another shift. Mornings at the Morning Star started promptly at 6, and by now she had the routine memorized. Sophia met her at the door, a to-go coffee in each hand. "Double shot for me, plain for you," she announced, thrusting a cup into Maya's grasp. "We're in for a doozy today. Saturdays are always packed." "Thanks," Maya said, taking a grateful sip. Her eyes flicked to the booth near the window. It was empty for now, but she couldn't help anticipating Christian Cole's arrival. He had a way of breezing in right when the morning chaos peaked, adding his own brand of tension to the air. Sophia nudged her playfully. "Hey, any brilliant new lines in that notebook of yours?" Maya shrugged. "I scribbled a few thoughts, but I haven't had time to do much else. Between late shifts and early mornings, I'm running on fumes." They headed inside, flipping on the lights and greeting the cook in the back. Within 20 minutes, the scent of sizzling bacon filled the diner, and the first customers trickled in, families with restless kids, older couples reading newspapers, and a few locals who sat at the counter sipping coffee. Maya moved gracefully from table to table, taking orders and offering warm smiles. As tired as she felt, she prided herself on making customers feel welcome. Around 7:30, right on schedule, Christian Cole entered. His posture rigid, gaze alert, he scanned the diner as though evaluating it for improvements. Dressed in a pressed button-down shirt and tailored slacks, he exuded the same aloof aura that always set him apart from the chatter of everyday folks. Maya braced herself. He settled into his usual booth without so much as a nod. She approached cautiously, notepad ready, determined to maintain professionalism. "Good morning, Mr. Cole. What can I get for you?" His eyes flicked up, briefly locking with hers. "The same," he replied coolly. He didn't need to elaborate. She already knew. 2 eggs over easy, whole wheat toast, bacon crisp, black coffee, no sugar, no cream. She offered a polite smile and turned to place the order, but as she walked away, she heard a faint, "Wait." Surprised, she glanced over her shoulder. Christian was focused on his phone again, his expression set. "Never mind," he muttered, seemingly dismissing whatever question had surfaced in his mind. Maya carried on, though a sliver of curiosity had wedged itself into her thoughts. It was rare for Christian to speak more than a handful of words to her in one sitting. She wondered if he even remembered her name, or if he just recognized her as the petite waitress who brought his coffee. Business ramped up. By 8:30, the diner buzzed with voices. Glasses clinked, plates clattered, and waitstaff hurried to keep up with orders. Sophia flitted between booths, exchanging friendly banter with regulars. Maya wove through the crowd, her notepad filled with scribbles of bacon-egg combos and requests for extra syrup. Then, as she reached Christian's booth with his steaming breakfast, the tension that had been lurking finally broke through. The moment she set his plate down, he snapped. "These eggs look overcooked," he said, voice taut with irritation. "I specifically requested over easy." Maya eyed the eggs. They looked fine to her. Maybe the edges were a little browned, but certainly not enough to warrant such a chilly reception. "I'm sorry," she said gently. "I'll have the kitchen redo them if you'd like." He exhaled sharply, as if speaking to her was a burden. "Yes, please do." Her cheeks flushed, but she nodded. "Right away." The exchange caught Sophia's attention. She hurried over, giving Maya a concerned look. "You okay?" she whispered. "I'm fine," Maya said, even though her pulse hammered at her temples. In truth, she felt trapped, frustrated by Christian's perpetual disapproval, but too cautious to risk losing her tip or, worse, her job. She quickly handed the plate back to the cook, requesting new eggs. Once they were done, she returned them to Christian with a measured smile. He tried a bite, offered no thanks, and resumed tapping on his phone. A wave of relief washed over her. At least the conflict ended there. Yet, for the rest of his meal, Christian's demeanor remained curt. He flagged Maya down twice more to complain about minor details. The toast wasn't quite toasted enough. The coffee had cooled too quickly. Each time she corrected the issue, teeth clenched behind a polite facade. The final straw came when he left a tip of $1, sliding it toward her without a word. Once he was gone, she stood by the empty booth, heart pounding in her chest. The dollar seemed an intentional insult, less than the cost of a candy bar. She swallowed the urge to toss it in the trash. Sophia sidled up to her. "That man has serious issues." "Don't let it get to you, Maya." Maya forced a small laugh, shoving the crumpled bill into her apron. "Yeah, I know," she said quietly, fighting a knot of anger in her stomach. She tried to move on to the next customer, but the encounter lingered in her mind. Why was he always so rude? What sort of life did he lead outside these walls to make him treat people with such dismissiveness? She had no answers, only questions that gnawed at her as she continued to work. And in the back of her mind, she couldn't help the faint flicker of wonder. If Christian Cole was so difficult just ordering breakfast, what deeper battles might be simmering beneath that polished exterior? Later that afternoon, after wiping down the last of the tables, Maya pulled off her apron and slumped into a corner booth. Her feet ached, her nerves were frayed, and the thought of walking home in the steamy Texas heat gave her little comfort. Outside the diner's large windows, traffic rolled by in its usual rhythm, oblivious to the small dramas unfolding inside. Sophia approached with 2 sodas in hand. "Thought you might need this," she said, sliding one glass across the table. "You didn't get a real break all day." Maya gratefully took a sip, the carbonation prickling her tongue. "Thanks. Today was rough, even by our standards." They sat quietly for a moment, the clamor of the day finally fading. Maya glanced at the wall clock, remembering she still had an unopened envelope at home, a reply from the literary contest she'd entered months ago. She hadn't mentioned it to anyone but Sophia. The thick letter taunted her from its perch on her kitchen table. Sophia nudged her foot under the booth. "You're thinking about that contest letter, aren't you?" Maya nodded. "Part of me wants to toss it in the trash without even reading it. I'm sure it's just another rejection." "Don't do that," Sophia said, voice gentle but firm. "You've got talent, Maya. Mrs. Henderson isn't the only one who thinks so. I'd love to see you catch a break for once." A pang of emotion tightened Maya's throat. She remembered her mother's encouragement back when she was a kid, filling notebook after notebook with imaginative stories. Her mother had always said, "Never stop believing in your words." But losing her mother years ago had left Maya feeling less sure about everything. Still, the memory lingered. She forced a smile and changed the subject. "So, how about you? You still saving up for that trip to New York?" Sophia's eyes sparkled at the mention. "You bet. I'm inching closer every month. One day, you'll come visit me, and we'll see a Broadway show together." Maya laughed softly. "You'd better not forget to invite me." Despite the heavy day, a small current of hope wove through their conversation. The future might hold possibilities they couldn't yet see. Just then, the door chimed open. Maya stiffened, expecting Christian's glacial presence, but it was only a pair of teenage girls looking for a quick bite. Relaxing, she turned back to Sophia. "You know, sometimes I can't shake the feeling something big is going to happen. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's this pull, like life can't stay the same forever." Sophia studied Maya's face. "You've been talking like that a lot lately. Maybe that's your intuition telling you it's time to break out of here. You can't stay a waitress forever." Maya glanced around the emptying diner, the black and white checkered floor, the red vinyl booths, the flickering neon sign out front. They were comfortable in a worn-in way. She had grown used to the routine, the simple paycheck, the occasional kindness from patrons like Mrs. Henderson. Still, she felt the restlessness building inside her. "Maybe," she said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "But how? I can't just quit. I've got rent. I've got bills." Sophia waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, I know that. I'm not saying be reckless. Just stay open to possibilities, okay?" Before Maya could respond, the kitchen door swung open and Hank, the diner's longtime cook, called out, "Girls, we got a small leak under the sink. Can one of you turn off the valve and bring me the bucket?" Sophia made a face and stood. "I'll handle it. Finish your soda, Maya, then we can both head home." As Sophia disappeared into the back, Maya took another sip of her drink, lost in thought. Her mind wandered to Christian Cole again. She couldn't fathom why he was so consistently rude. She had half a mind to assume he enjoyed making people feel small. But something about the tension in his gaze suggested that maybe he carried burdens of his own. A crack of thunder rumbled outside, and rain began to patter against the windows. The day's heat was finally breaking, a small storm rolling through the city. Maya found herself mesmerized by the droplets sliding down the glass, each one reflecting a tiny piece of the world outside. In a way, it reminded her of her own situation. So many unspoken dreams, so many words left unsaid, each waiting to break free. She pulled the notebook from her purse. Gently, she flipped through pages of half-finished poems, fleeting observations about customers, and snippets of dialogue she'd overheard. It was her secret tapestry of stories. As she skimmed through them, she felt an ache of longing. Could she ever share these lines with the world? A gust of wind rattled the door, and for a brief moment, the overhead lights flickered. Maya shivered, strangely aware of the fragile balance that kept her life in place. Her job, her apartment, the small wedge of security she clung to. She might not adore her routine, but losing it altogether terrified her. Yet she was beginning to sense a shift in the air, an almost imperceptible tremor that hinted change was coming whether she was ready or not, and if that door of opportunity ever did open, would she have the courage to walk through? She closed the notebook softly, as if cradling an unspoken promise. The storm outside only grew louder, like a whispered reminder that life rarely remains the same for long. Maya woke the next morning to the sound of raindrops tapping against her bedroom window. It was a rarity in Austin to have 2 days of rain in a row, and the city streets were slick with puddles. Pulling on a light jacket, she made her way down the cramped stairwell of her aging apartment complex. The hallway light flickered overhead, a subtle warning that the place needed more maintenance than the landlord ever bothered to do. She clutched her thin umbrella, braving the drizzle as she trudged to the bus stop. The morning commute was quieter than usual, the damp weather keeping most people subdued. Maya used the ride to revisit her swirling thoughts. The unopened letter, sitting on her tiny kitchen table, her out-of-reach aspiration to be a writer, and the restless feeling that she was about to run out of time. By the time she reached the Morning Star diner, her shoes were damp and her hair frizzed around her face. Sophia was already inside, balancing a tray of silverware while talking to Hank. She shot Maya a sympathetic glance. "Rough morning." "Something like that," Maya said, stifling a shiver. "Just feeling a little weighed down, I guess." She stashed her umbrella and clocked in, turning her attention to the day's tasks. The diner was less crowded than usual, which only made the tension in Maya's mind more obvious. With fewer orders to fill, she had too much time to think. She found herself pacing between tables, rearranging salt shakers and wiping non-existent smudges off the counter. Around mid-morning, Mrs. Henderson appeared, shaking raindrops from her cardigan. Maya's mood brightened instantly. "Mrs. H." "Sit anywhere you like." The elderly woman settled into a booth with a gentle smile. "Oh, I'm perfectly fine right here by the window. It's nice watching the rain, don't you think?" Maya nodded, pouring her a cup of coffee. "I suppose it is calming, in a way." Mrs. Henderson regarded Maya carefully. "You seem distracted today, dear. Are you all right?" Biting her lip, Maya shrugged. "Just got a lot on my mind." "Is it that writing contest you mentioned once?" Mrs. Henderson guessed, her expression kind. Maya felt a rush of warmth at the older woman's perceptiveness. "Maybe. I haven't even opened the letter. I'm too afraid it's another rejection." Mrs. Henderson sipped her coffee thoughtfully. "Sometimes the fear of a no keeps us from ever hearing a yes." Those words hit Maya harder than she expected. Her chest tightened as she offered a small nod. "You're right," she whispered, though she wasn't sure she believed it enough to act. Before she could continue, the diner door swung open with a jingle, and Christian Cole stepped in, briskly shaking water off his coat. Maya felt her stomach clench. Even on a slow day, he could rattle her nerves. He barely glanced around before claiming his usual booth. Maya delivered Mrs. Henderson's toast, then approached Christian with the measured calm she always tried to maintain. "Good morning, Mr. Cole. Would you like your regular order?" He glanced up, his gaze cool as ever. "Yes, please." There was no venom in his voice this time, just a perfunctory politeness. Still, it left Maya unsettled. She turned the order in to Hank, then drifted back to the counter, a swirl of doubts tumbling through her mind. The mail had come earlier that morning, delivered in a soggy bundle to her building's shared foyer. Inside were 2 bills, a reminder of her ever-present responsibilities, and a store flyer for discount furniture. She couldn't help recalling how she'd hesitated over her electric bill, worried about how she'd cover it if tips didn't pick up this month. Her gaze flicked to Christian, who was reviewing a document on his tablet with a furrowed brow. Rumors around the diner hinted that he was on the brink of a massive deal, something with an investor who valued family values or some such thing. Maya found it ironic that Christian, of all people, might have to pretend to care about anything other than profit. Sophia sidled up to her, a gentle elbow in her ribs. "Why the long face? Still thinking about that letter?" Maya nodded absently. "And other stuff? Bills, rent, my future, all of it." "I guess I'm just feeling stuck." Sophia gave her arm a reassuring pat. "Don't let it crush you. You've got options, you know. Might not feel like it now, but sometimes life throws you a curveball that can change everything. In a good way, too." Maya forced a smile, trying to absorb Sophia's optimism. She carried Christian's plate to his booth, setting it down. She noted the faint lines of tension in his face as he continued studying his tablet. He gave a curt nod of thanks, but said nothing more. In the background, Mrs. Henderson finished her meal and offered a friendly wave goodbye. Maya returned it, her heart heavy yet touched by the older woman's concern. Every little reminder of kindness contrasted sharply with the invisible pressures piling up on her. She returned to the counter, fingertips brushing the edge of her pocket where she kept scraps of paper, little lines of poetry she jotted down whenever inspiration struck. She told herself she'd open that contest letter soon, maybe tonight. If it was a rejection, at least she'd know. And if it wasn't, the possibility was enough to keep a tiny flame of hope alive. But for now, she had a shift to complete, and no choice but to keep forging ahead, ignoring the storm that churned beneath her composed surface. As Christian silently finished his meal, Maya couldn't help wondering if he, too, felt a storm brewing in his life, though she doubted he'd ever admit it, especially not to a humble waitress. By the time evening rolled around, Maya was bone-tired from the long shift. The rain had finally cleared, leaving the Austin sky washed with the orange glow of a setting sun. She and Sophia were closing the diner together, flipping chairs onto tables and giving the floors a final sweep. Only a few stragglers sipped their last coffees near the counter, chatting in low voices. Christian Cole had made his usual appearance earlier in the afternoon, then disappeared without much fanfare. Maya couldn't say she was sorry to see him go. His stony silence always set her on edge. With him gone, the diner felt a little lighter. As she wiped the final table, she heard Sophia's startled gasp from across the room. "Maya, over here, quick!" Maya rushed over to the booth Christian always occupied. Sophia stood frozen, staring at something lying on the table. At first, Maya thought he'd left his phone or some important document behind. But then she noticed the slip of paper resting on top of the receipt. It looked like a check, and the figure was enough to make Maya's knees nearly buckle. $1 million, she whispered in disbelief. Her mind refused to accept what her eyes were seeing. The check was made out to her, her full name, Maya Rodriguez. Next to it was a plain white envelope, unsealed. Sophia found her voice first. "This is insane. He just left this here? Why would he do that?" Heart pounding. Maya gently picked up the check, verifying the name and the amount. Her stomach lurched with the realization that it was authentic. She knew enough about checks to recognize official watermarks. Then, with trembling fingers, she opened the envelope. It contained a single piece of paper with neat, precise handwriting. "Maya, meet me at my office tomorrow morning. There's a matter of urgency I'd like to discuss. C. Cole." Her head spun. Urgent matter. $1 million check. Was it some sick joke? A trap? She glanced at Sophia, who was wide-eyed and speechless. Did he give any sign before leaving?" Maya stammered. "Did you see him put this down?" Sophia shook her head. "I was in the back talking to Hank when he left. This is beyond bizarre. What's he even want from you?" Maya's mind raced with grim possibilities. Was he trying to buy her silence about something? Had she accidentally witnessed something incriminating without realizing it, or was it a twisted power play, a test to see if she'd cash a check that didn't truly belong to her? She sank into the booth, her apron still bunched in her hand. 100 scenarios whirled in her mind, each more surreal than the last. Meanwhile, the other diners finished up and ambled out, leaving the place eerily quiet. Sophia broke the silence. "Look, you can't just toss this aside. You have to at least figure out what he wants, right?" Maya swallowed hard. The idea of walking into Christian's office terrified her, but so did the thought of ignoring something that could be both dangerous and life-changing. "What if it's a scam?" she asked, voice quivering. Sophia shrugged. "Then better to find out now. At least you have that note in his handwriting." "It seems legit in a weird, high-roller kind of way." Maya nodded, though her thoughts refused to settle. With trembling hands, she carefully tucked the check and note into her purse. "I'll go see him, but I'm not promising anything. This is just too crazy." They locked up the diner in a daze, stepping out into the warm night air. Sophia insisted on walking Maya to the bus stop. As they stood beneath the dim streetlight, Sophia placed a comforting hand on Maya's shoulder. "Be careful, okay? If he asks for something sketchy, you walk away. No amount of money is worth your safety or dignity." Maya nodded, heart still pounding. "I promise, I'll keep my guard up." When Maya finally arrived at her apartment, she tossed her keys onto the tiny kitchen table, where the unopened contest letter still lay. Setting her purse down, she pulled out the check and the note, placing them side by side with the envelope from the contest. One represented the possibility of recognition for her writing, modest, uncertain, and entirely dependent on her own talent. The other was a baffling offer of wealth beyond her wildest dreams, tied to a man who seemed to despise her on principle. She stood there, the overhead light buzzing faintly, the hum of her refrigerator filling the silence. What kind of matter of urgency would push Christian Cole to leave $1 million check for a woman he barely acknowledged? Was it a bribe, a hush payment, or something else entirely? Her stomach twisted with anxiety, but also a flicker of intrigue. No matter how rude he was, Christian Cole didn't strike her as a man who did things without purpose. And if that purpose involved her, she needed to know why. Crossing the small apartment, she moved to the bathroom and splashed water on her face, studying her reflection in the mirror. She still wore the same rumpled uniform from the diner. Her eyes were ringed with exhaustion, but behind that fatigue, she detected a spark of defiance. She'd endured countless shifts with rude customers, countless days feeling stuck. If this was her window out, no matter how strange, it might be the pivot she'd been longing for. Tomorrow morning, she would walk into Christian Cole's office, find out what he wanted, and decide for herself if she could live with his terms. $1 million. The thought alone made her head reel, but more powerful than the money was the gnawing sense that her life was about to change forever. She flipped off the bathroom light, crawled into bed, and pulled the blankets over her. Sleep didn't come easily. The check loomed in her thoughts, a ticket to something new and maybe dangerous. But beneath her fear lay the smallest glimmer of hope, a whisper that maybe, just maybe, the dreams she'd tucked away for so long were on the verge of unfolding in ways she could never have predicted. The following morning, Maya stepped into the sleek lobby of the Austonian, one of Austin's tallest and most exclusive residential towers. Every surface gleamed under bright modern lighting, polished marble floors, glass walls reflecting her slight frame, and a discreet security desk manned by an impeccably dressed guard. She barely recognized her own reflection in the lobby mirror, her dark hair pinned neatly behind her ears, her usual diner uniform replaced by a simple blouse and black slacks. The check for $1 million was safely locked in her apartment, but the piece of paper that felt more significant in this moment was Christian Cole's handwritten note, now crumpled in her trembling hand. At the security desk, she cleared her throat. "I'm here to see Mr. Christian Cole," she said, trying to project a confidence she didn't feel. The guard glanced at his computer screen. "Name, Maya Rodriguez." He typed for a moment, then nodded. "Penthouse level. He's expecting you." Sliding a sleek elevator keycard across the counter, he added, "Take the private elevator on the left." Maya swallowed hard, stepping into the elevator and pressing the button for the top floor. The ride felt surreal, each ascending floor a silent reminder that she was entering a world far removed from her own. She thought about Sophia's warnings. "Be careful. Don't let him push you around." She nodded to herself, bracing for whatever waited at the top. When the doors slid open, she was greeted by a stylish reception area, minimalist white furniture, abstract art on the walls, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the sprawling city below. The receptionist's desk was empty, but a tall woman in her 40s stepped forward, her expression calm, a genuine smile on her face. "You must be Mrs. Rodriguez. I'm Clara, Mr. Cole's executive assistant," she said warmly, extending her hand. She had cropped salt and pepper hair, styled elegantly, and wore a fitted navy blazer that complemented her poised demeanor. Maya shook Clara's hand, trying not to let her nerves show. "Thank you. It's nice to meet you." Clara led her across a short hallway into a spacious office, if one could even call it that. It felt more like a penthouse living area with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a spectacular view of downtown Austin. In the center of the space stood Christian Cole, his back turned to them. He wore a crisp charcoal suit, blonde hair perfectly groomed. As he pivoted to face them, Maya's pulse fluttered. Clara gestured politely. "Mr. Cole, Ms. Rodriguez is here." Christian nodded, dismissing Clara with a brief wave. "Thank you, Clara. That'll be all." Clara left, the door whispering shut behind her, and Maya suddenly felt the weight of this meeting settle on her shoulders. He studied her with those cool blue eyes. The silence dragged for a moment until he motioned to a chair near a sleek glass desk. "Have a seat." Maya perched at the edge, her stomach twisting. "Mr. Cole, if you're wondering about the check, I still don't understand." He sat on the opposite side, hands folded. "I imagine you're both confused and suspicious. Let me get to the point." He leaned forward, voice calm, but edged with tension. "I'm in the midst of finalizing a significant deal with an investor named Liam Murphy. He's conservative, family-oriented, and values stability above everything else. He wants to invest in coal innovations, but he's expressed concern that I seem, shall we say, volatile in my personal life." Maya stared, baffled. "Volatile?" Christian's jaw tightened. "Murphy believes in wholesome domestic images. He's an old-school type. Thinks a committed, engaged man is more trustworthy." He paused, letting that sink in. "I told him I'm engaged. I did it on impulse, mostly to pacify him. Of course, there is no fiancé. I need you to fill that role, temporarily." A chill raced up Maya's spine. "Wait, that's not what I expected you to say. You want me to pretend I'm your fiancé? Why?" "As I said, Liam Murphy is integral to our project. I need this deal, and he'll only sign if he's convinced I've settled down." Christian's gaze flicked to the windows, as if the enormity of the city below mirrored his own pressures. "You, Maya, are someone he wouldn't suspect to be after my money, assuming we craft the right story. You're a diner waitress, an ordinary woman, no offense." She bit her lip. Ordinarily, she would bristle at that condescending tone. "So in other words, you want a fiancé who seems honest and not like a gold digger, and you chose me because you don't think I have the ambition to use you." "It's not about ambition," he replied matter-of-factly. "It's about believability. And yes, I suppose I think you wouldn't be performative. You come across as genuine whether you realize it or not. Maya's cheeks burned. She thought of the times he'd barely acknowledged her at the diner. Now, suddenly, he needed her authenticity. That's absurd. I can't just pretend to be engaged. People will see right through it, especially if you keep treating me like I'm invisible. Christian exhaled. For a moment, something like regret flickered in his eyes, though it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Look, I don't enjoy mixing personal matters with business, but it's necessary. I realize you have no reason to do this for me, so I offered compensation. That check is real. If you agree, you'll have that $1 million, and if everything goes smoothly, there might be more opportunities for you. She stared, her pulse drumming in her ears. 1 million, enough to change her life completely. Maybe pursue writing without fear of rent or bills. But the ethical dilemma gnawed at her. Are you asking me to lie to your investor and basically to everyone else we know? Precisely. But it won't be forever. Just until the deal is sealed, then we can quietly end the engagement and part ways. Maya's heart hammered. She thought of Sophia's cautionary words, of her own dreams. The man before her was arrogant, controlling, but also offering a chance she couldn't have conjured in her wildest imagination. I can't just say yes, she managed, her voice trembling. I need time to think. Christian checked his watch, expression taut. I don't have much time. Liam Murphy is scheduled to finalize his decision soon. I need you to decide within the next couple of days. She rose, fighting a dizzy swirl of emotions. I should go. This is too much to process. He nodded, signaling the end of their discussion. Clara will see you out. Maya turned on unsteady feet, mind racing with the enormity of what he'd asked. As Clara guided her back to the elevator, she could only think, what kind of life had she stepped into? Pretending to be engaged to a man who had treated her with such disdain felt insane. Yet the alternative, returning to the diner, living in quiet frustration, always fighting for scraps, made her chest ache with an indescribable longing for more. By the time she reached the lobby, she was clutching the elevator keycard like it might vanish. $1 million, a promise to pose as Christian Cole's fiancé, and a door that led to a future she'd never have imagined a week ago. Before stepping out into the bright Texas sun, Maya inhaled deeply, reality crashing down. Her next move could change everything. 2 days later, Maya found herself once again standing in the penthouse office. Only this time her posture was straighter and her heart filled with a mix of determination and dread. She'd spent every spare moment ruminating over Christian's proposal. The money alone was overwhelming, but the moral implications weighed heavily on her. She'd be deceiving people, family, friends, an investor who believed in Christian's supposed engagement, yet the chance to break free from her mundane life tugged at her constantly. Christian stood by the panoramic windows, scanning his phone. When he noticed her arrival, he slipped the device into his jacket. "You came back," he said simply, neither smile nor sneer crossing his features. Maya set her shoulders back. "I want to hear the details, everything you expect from me and what's off limits." He gestured toward a sleek wooden conference table. Spread across it were documents and a pen that screamed high-end. Maya hovered at the edge, her stomach knotting. She could almost see her reflection in the glossy tabletop. Christian motioned for her to sit, then joined her, leaving a respectful distance. "Here's how this will work," he began, his voice clipped yet calm. "I've had my legal team draft a contract outlining the parameters of our arrangement. You'll receive the $1 million plus any necessary expenses for clothing, travel, or social events once you sign. In return, you agree to present yourself as my fiancé until this deal with Liam Murphy is finalized. After that, we can dissolve the engagement quietly." Maya stared at the papers, her mind reeling at the cold practicality of it all. And what exactly does present myself entail? Do I have to move in with you? Pretend we're in love around the clock? Christian cleared his throat. Certain appearances will matter. Liam will expect to see us at social gatherings, dinners, and possibly formal events. He's old-fashioned. He might even expect an engagement party. As for living arrangements, it's more convincing if you move into my penthouse, at least temporarily. But we can discuss separate bedrooms. His tone was businesslike, as if they were negotiating a corporate merger. Her cheeks warmed. She'd never lived with anyone outside her family, let alone a virtual stranger. "I have conditions," she said quietly, clasping her hands in her lap. "I won't quit my job right away. It might look suspicious if I suddenly vanish from the diner. Plus, I need to keep writing on the side. I refuse to abandon my creative pursuits." He nodded curtly. "That's fine. If you want to hold on to your waitress job while living here, that's your call. Just realize that might raise questions. People might wonder why a millionaire's fiancé is still working at a diner." "They can wonder all they want," Maya shot back, her voice sharper than intended. "It's important to me, and I'm not comfortable lying to my best friend, Sophia. She already suspects something's off. Maybe I don't need to share all the details, but I'm not going to betray her trust entirely." Christian's jaw tightened for a second, then relaxed. "If that's your condition, so be it. But keep the specifics between us as much as possible. The last thing I need is more complications." He turned a page in the contract, pointing to a line. "You'll see there's a confidentiality clause. Everything about our arrangement remains private. Violate that, and you forfeit the money." Maya swallowed hard. "Understood." She skimmed the contract, her eyes blurring at legal jargon. Joint appearances, non-disclosure, termination upon mutual consent. It read like a novel of responsibilities and restrictions, with her name attached to each. She took a deep breath, trying to quell the wave of panic building in her chest. Could she truly do this, live a lie for money? Yet her mind drifted to the rent notices, the diner's endless shifts, and the half-finished poems left idle because she was too exhausted to pour her heart onto the page. $1 million would open every door she'd ever dreamed of. She could take courses in creative writing at the University of Texas. She could focus on her stories without fear of bills piling up. This money represented a lifeline as much as a trap. She glanced at Christian. "And after all this is done, what then? I just walk away?" He nodded. "Yes. We'll part ways. No strings attached. I'll make sure everything is handled discreetly. No scandal for you, no press coverage. I can manage that." His gaze flicked to the contract again. "If there's anything you find unacceptable, let's discuss it now." Maya hesitated. "I want some autonomy while I'm under your roof. Time for myself, for my writing. No controlling when I come and go." He agreed, tapping the table. "Fine, but you'll need to attend events whenever I request it, especially if Liam Murphy is present." She nodded, feeling the final threads of her old life slip through her fingers. If she signed, she wouldn't be the same Maya who quietly served coffee and scribbled poems in a battered notebook. "All right," she said, picking up the pen. "But there's one more thing, basic respect. Treat me like a partner in this arrangement, not a prop. I refuse to be humiliated." A flicker of regret touched his expression. "I'll do my best. This is new territory for both of us." With a steadying breath, she put pen to paper, her signature looping across the line. It felt like signing her name to an impossible story, a romance built on deception, financed by a check that still seemed surreal. When she lifted the pen, her heart pounded like a distant drumbeat. Christian gathered the pages, relief evident in the way his shoulders loosened. "Then we have an agreement. You'll move in next week. In the meantime, Clara will help you get situated. Clothes, accessories, whatever you need. He handed her a slim folder. This is a schedule of upcoming events. Please familiarize yourself. Rising to her feet, Maya tucked the folder under her arm. Her voice shook slightly. I'm not sure if I'm more terrified or relieved. Christian's gaze flicked over her face. Probably both, but we'll manage. She nodded, trying to keep her composure. They had a contract, a cold, formal piece of paper that bound them to a lie. Yet beneath the surface, she sensed a current of something more, curiosity, maybe even a flicker of empathy. She offered him a curt goodbye and stepped out of the office. As the door closed behind her, the surreal truth sank in. She was now Maya Rodriguez, future fiancée of Christian Cole, on paper anyway. And with that, her life was no longer just her own. Moving day arrived faster than Maya anticipated. One moment, she was scrubbing down tables at the Morningstar diner for what felt like the 1,000th time. The next, she was hauling a duffel bag of clothes into Christian Cole's penthouse. Even with a newly purchased wardrobe courtesy of his credit card, she'd insisted on bringing some of her personal belongings, her well-worn jeans, a few t-shirts, her favorite sneakers, and, most importantly, her notebooks. When she stepped off the private elevator, Clara greeted her warmly. Welcome, Maya. I've prepared the guest suite for you. Follow me. Clara led her down a short hallway until they reached a spacious bedroom decorated in neutral tones. A massive window offered a panoramic view of downtown Austin. The sight was mesmerizing, streets and skyscrapers stretching below like a map of possibility. Maya let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. This is... wow, she breathed, running her hand over the plush duvet at the edge of the king-size bed. The last time she'd had a bedroom to herself that felt this luxurious was never. Clara smiled. Mr. Cole wanted you to be comfortable. If you need anything, more closet space, different linens, anything at all, just let me know. Maya shot Clara a curious glance. In her limited interactions, she'd found Christian's assistant both efficient and surprisingly kind. Thank you, Clara. I appreciate all your help, really. This is a lot to take in. Clara nodded sympathetically. It is quite an adjustment. I hope you'll settle in quickly. By the way, Christian asked me to remind you about the dinner tonight. He'll be introducing you to some associates. It's nothing formal, just a small gathering. Maya's heart thumped. The moment she stepped into the penthouse, she'd known this day would come, officially playing the role of fiancé. Right. I'll, figure out what to wear. Once Clara left, Maya took a moment to absorb the surroundings. She opened the closet, finding half of it already stocked with elegant dresses, tailored blazers, and shoes that likely cost more than her old car. She ran her fingers across the fabric. It was both exciting and intimidating. These clothes represented a world of status she'd never imagined belonging to. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophia. Girl, are you seriously moving in with him? This is insane. Please tell me you're not about to vanish into a fancy cage. Maya felt a pang of guilt. She'd told Sophia she was involved in some sort of arrangement with Christian, but had avoided the full truth. The contract she signed forbade her from spelling out every detail. She typed back, I'm fine, I promise. Need to do this for a bit. Let's meet soon. She set her phone aside and turned her attention to unpacking. She placed her notebooks on a small desk near the window, determined not to let her writing get lost in this new, surreal life. Glancing around the suite, she couldn't help thinking how strange it was that she'd moved into a place with a man she barely knew. Yet here she was, $1 million promise hanging over her head. Later that afternoon, she ventured into the main living area. It was all sleek lines and modern furniture, with a large sectional couch facing a floor-to-ceiling glass wall. The skyline view was breathtaking. but it was Christian's presence that instantly drew her eye. He stood by the window, speaking into his phone with low intensity. When he noticed her, he ended the call. "Settling in?" he asked, voice neutral. She nodded. "Yes, it's a big change." He shoved his hands in his pockets. "I understand. I've asked Clara to arrange a personal shopper in case you need anything for tonight. But I see she already did a good job with the closet." Maya mustered a small smile. "She did. Still, I'll probably stick to something simple. It's not exactly a gala, right?" He nodded. "Right. Mostly business associates. I'd like you to join us, just to start building the image we agreed on. We need people to see us as a couple, so they'll talk, and eventually word reaches Liam Murphy." Her pulse quickened. "Understood. I guess I'll follow your lead. Try to act natural." Christian lifted a brow. "Natural might be easier said than done, but we'll manage." She bit her lip. "You do realize we barely know each other. People might pick up on that." He shrugged. "We'll get to know each other's backgrounds, enough to make conversation credible." Lara prepared some notes, basic details about me, my habits. You should memorize them in case you get cornered by questions. Annoyance flickered through her. "I'm not your puppet. I'll study the basics, but let's hope your friends don't interrogate me like the CIA." His expression softened slightly. "I don't think they will. Still, Carl Peterson might be there." "Carl Peterson? Who is that?" "Rival business figure," Christian explained, a flash of tension crossing his eyes. "He loves digging into my affairs, personal or otherwise. Keep your guard up." A knot formed in Maya's stomach. She was already uneasy about mingling in Christian's world. The prospect of a hawk-like rival picking apart her every word made it worse. That evening, she dressed in a simple, knee-length black dress with a modest neckline. Elegant, but not too flashy. A pair of black pumps finished the look. Standing in front of the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She swallowed her nerves, reminding herself that she was here by choice. The check would fund her future, help her chase her writing dreams. She had to endure the ruse. When she emerged, Christian was waiting by the entrance. His gaze slid over her, and for a split second, his mask of cool composure wavered. "You look fine," he commented, a hint of softness in his tone. "Thanks," she replied, trying not to let his remark rattle her. They rode the elevator down to a private lounge within the building. Maya felt her heart pounding like a drum. Old conflicts brewed inside her, a longing to remain true to herself, contrasted with the immense pressure to perform a convincing role. All she could do was stand beside Christian, the city lights reflecting off his calm features, and wonder how deep she'd have to go before she found her way back to the real Maya. The private lounge in the Ostonian was an elegant, softly lit space with floor-to-ceiling windows, tasteful art installations, and plush seating arrangements. Maya entered on Christian's arm, her stomach roiling with anxiety. The dinner was actually more of a cocktail gathering, with waitstaff moving among guests, offering hors d'oeuvres and drinks. Everyone was impeccably dressed, exuding an air of affluence that made Maya acutely aware of her outsider status. Christian led her toward a small cluster of his business associates. She recognized none of them, but each seemed to know Christian well, if not personally, then by reputation. As they turned, polite smiles plastered on their faces. Christian placed a light hand on her back, introducing her. "This is Maya Rodriguez, my fiancée," he said, his voice steady, the words sounding almost natural. Maya forced her best smile, gripping her clutch so hard her knuckles ached. A middle-aged man in a tailored grey suit, Matthew Goldberg, extended his hand. "Maya, pleased to meet you." "Christian's a lucky man." His comment, though well-intended, made her flush. She hoped her jittery nerves weren't visible. One by one, she was introduced to several others, a couple who ran a local tech firm, an older gentleman who was a real estate developer, and a woman in a sleek red dress who seemed to work in PR. They offered friendly nods and small talk, questions about how Maya and Christian met, how long they'd been engaged. The usual script. Her chest tightened. This was the moment she'd dreaded, the fabricated backstory. She summoned the tidbits she'd memorized from Clara's notes. "We met at a casual fundraiser," she said, "and got to talking. One thing led to another. We've been inseparable since." Christian nodded in agreement, his hand still resting lightly on her lower back. "She caught my attention immediately," he added. "She's talented, passionate about writing, just the energy I needed in my life." Maya nearly choked on the unexpected compliment, but she kept smiling. The group chuckled, seemingly charmed, and Maya exhaled a tiny breath of relief. So far, so good. But she could still sense eyes on her, measuring her posture, her accent, her attire. As the conversation drifted to tech investments and business expansions, Maya mentally stepped back. She gazed around, taking in the elegantly curved bar, the dimmed chandeliers, and the panoramic nighttime view of Austin's skyline. It struck her how drastically her world had shifted. A week ago, she was a diner waitress balancing coffee pots. Tonight, she stood among the city's elite, a glass of champagne in hand, fiancée to a millionaire, at least on paper. Scanning the room, she noticed a man about Christian's age, standing alone with a whiskey glass. He was well-dressed, dark-haired, and exuded a certain self-assured charm. Their eyes locked, and he offered her a brief, knowing smile that sent a faint shiver down her spine. She had a feeling he recognized she didn't belong here, but he said nothing, merely took a slow sip of his drink. Soon enough, Christian guided her toward a secluded corner, taking a moment away from the mingling crowd. She appreciated the break. Her head was already spinning with polite small talk. "How are you holding up?" he asked quietly, scanning her face. Maya swallowed, glancing around to ensure no one overheard. "Nervous," she admitted, "but managing." He gave a slight nod. "You're doing fine. Just keep it simple. We don't need elaborate lies. Our story is that we met, connected quickly, and decided on a short engagement. People might raise eyebrows, but they won't have much reason to doubt us if we stay consistent." She studied him, struck by the contrast between this calm, composed man and the rude customer who barely acknowledged her at the diner. "Right. I guess I just need to breathe," she murmured. He almost smiled. "Exactly." Then his gaze flicked across the room. "Be mindful of Carl Peterson," he added under his breath. "He's here." Her pulse jumped. She followed Christian's line of sight and found the dark-haired man she'd spotted earlier. Of course. Carl's eyes were on them, a subtle smirk curving his lips as he watched them from across the lounge. A moment later, he made his way over. "Christian, always a pleasure," Carl greeted with that smooth voice. He nodded at Maya. "And this must be the new fiancé I've heard whispers about." Maya extended her hand, forcing a polite smile. "Maya Rodriguez. Nice to meet you." He took her hand briefly, eyes flicking over her in open assessment. "Carl Peterson. So, you're the one who finally tamed Mr. Cole, She stifled a surge of nerves. "I guess so," she said, channeling confidence she didn't feel. Carl turned to Christian. "Bold move, letting the rumor mill do most of the announcing. You've always been a man of surprises." His gaze swept back to Maya. "How did you two meet?" "I don't recall Christian ever mentioning you before." Her heart lurched. She repeated the fundraiser story, hoping she sounded convincing. Carl listened attentively, expression betraying no immediate skepticism, but something in his eyes told her he was storing away details for later. When she finished, Carl chuckled softly. "Fascinating. Well, I'm sure we'll see a lot more of each other. I look forward to learning more about your whirlwind romance. Congratulations! He raised his glass in a mock salute, then drifted away into the crowd. Maya exhaled. He doesn't buy it, does he? She whispered to Christian. He's always suspicious. Just ignore him as much as possible. Christian replied, tension tightening his jaw. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of handshakes, introductions, and carefully crafted smiles. Maya tried to stay poised, though every question made her heart pound. By the time guests began filtering out, she was exhausted, her cheeks from constant smiling, her mind from constant vigilance. As Christian escorted her back upstairs, she noticed the slightest slump in his shoulders. Perhaps hosting a facade was draining for him too. When the elevator doors slid shut, they stood in silence. The hum of machinery, a reminder of how their entire relationship was manufactured for show. At last, they reached the penthouse, stepping into the quiet, dimly lit living area. Maya let out a long breath. Well, I survived. He nodded. You did more than survive. You handled yourself well. A pause. Thank you. His gratitude took her by surprise. She managed a small nod, too weary to say much else. The night had confirmed what she already suspected. Living this lie would be no simple performance. People like Carl Peterson were eager to poke holes in their story. And while Christian might exude confidence in public, Maya sensed the stakes were high for him too. When she finally retreated to her guest suite, she sank onto the bed, slipping off her heels with a wince. Glancing at her reflection in the mirror, she barely recognized the sophisticated woman staring back. Where was Maya the writer, Maya the diner waitress? In all this glossy pretend, and how long could she keep up a facade that felt more real to everyone else than it did to her? A few days later, Maya found herself at the long marble island in Christian's ultra-modern kitchen, flipping through a binder of etiquette notes Clara had compiled. She'd been tasked with learning the finer points of formal dining, social cues in elite circles, and a slew of other protocols she never imagined she'd need. It was overwhelming, a tangle of rules and rigid expectations. Footsteps approached, and she glanced up to see Clara enter, a gentle smile on her face. "How's your crash course going?" Maya groaned. "I can't believe there's a right way and a wrong way to hold a champagne flute. Who made all these rules anyway?" Clara chuckled. "Rich people with too much time on their hands, probably." She pulled out a stool beside Maya. "Honestly, though, I think you're doing great. Don't let it intimidate you. Deep down, these socialites are just as flawed as anyone else." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Thanks for saying that. It's just hard to imagine they care about anything outside their manicured little bubble." Clara studied her carefully. "Don't forget, Christian grew up outside that bubble, too. He didn't always have all this." She gestured around the penthouse. "He built coal innovations from the ground up. That sort of drive doesn't come without personal cost." Maya's curiosity piqued. She'd assumed Christian was born wealthy. "You're saying he wasn't always this polished?" Clara pressed her lips together. "I shouldn't say much, but he's not nearly as unfeeling as he appears. Just, guarded." Maya thought of the glimpses she'd seen. A flicker of concern in his eyes when she was overwhelmed, a rare word of thanks. "Maybe," she conceded softly. Changing the subject, Clara nodded toward the binder. "If you want a break, we can go over the basics in person. Practice small talk, posture, that sort of thing." "Please," Maya said, sliding off the stool. "Anything beats reading another list of do's and don'ts." They spent the next hour walking through the penthouse living room, balancing imaginary champagne flutes, mastering the polite smile that didn't look too eager or too aloof. Maya couldn't help feeling ridiculous, like an actor in an off-Broadway play, but without a script she believed in. Yet, Clara's friendly, encouraging presence eased some of the tension. Eventually, Christian arrived home, stepping through the front door with a tired air about him. He paused when he saw them. "What's going on?" Clara waved an arm theatrically. "Etiquette boot camp. Maya's making good progress." He set down his briefcase, giving a faint nod. "That's good. There's an event next week, some philanthropic luncheon. Liam Murphy might be there, so we should be prepared." Maya suppressed a sigh. Another event, another chance to prove herself. "I'll be ready," she said, trying to sound confident. Clara excused herself to handle a phone call, leaving Maya and Christian alone in the living area. He removed his suit jacket, draping it neatly over a chair. She could see the fatigue etched in his features, the subtle slump of his shoulders once he was out of public view. "Long day," she ventured, stepping closer. He gave a short nod, eyes flicking up to meet hers. "Dealing with deadlines, negotiations, and Carl Peterson keeps sniffing around. He's friendly with some potential investors, trying to sway them away from me." Maya bit her lip. "I'm sorry. Sounds stressful." He shrugged. "That's the business world. And if I want Liam Murphy on board, I can't afford any slip-ups." They lapsed into a silence, neither quite sure what to say. Maya found herself remembering what Clara said about Christian having a past outside wealth. She wondered if he ever felt trapped by the persona he'd created, a ruthless tech mogul who had to maintain control at all costs. After a moment, Christian inclined his head toward the binder on the table. "How goes the studying?" She grimaced. "I'm not the best student, but Clara's been a huge help." His gaze softened marginally. "I appreciate your efforts. This isn't easy for either of us, but you've adapted quickly. I realize this is a strange situation," Maya chuckled wryly. "That's one way to put it. I never thought I'd be living in a penthouse, pretending to be engaged to a millionaire." A ghost of a smile flickered across his face, then vanished. "Look, I know I haven't given you much reason to trust me, but for what it's worth, I won't let you be hung out to dry." His words caught her off guard. She remembered the times in the diner when he barely acknowledged her as a human being. Now he was offering solidarity. "I guess that's nice to hear," she replied softly. Christian moved to the large window, gazing at the city lights. "If we succeed, you'll have the means to pursue your writing dreams, right? That's what you want." She joined him by the glass, the view still breathtaking even though she'd seen it before. "Yes, more than anything." He nodded. "Then let's keep our eyes on the goal." Their reflection in the glass was strange, two people standing side by side, sharing a moment of mutual understanding in a penthouse far above the streets where their paths once diverged so drastically. For a heartbeat, Maya sensed something like empathy in him, a quiet recognition that this was bigger than both of them. Just then, Clara re-entered, phone in hand. "Christian, you've got an urgent call." He turned away, nodding. "Right, duty calls." Maya watched him disappear down the hall, wondering if maybe there was more to him beneath the polished exterior, and she realized, with a start, that part of her wanted to find out. Because for all his aloofness, he'd given her a lifeline to fulfill her ambitions, and in a small but growing sense, he seemed to be trusting her too. Alone again, she closed the binder and settled onto one of the modern chairs. She thought about the coming weeks, classes on etiquette, events where she'd have to shine under scrutiny. It was daunting, but she also felt a newfound spark of determination. Maybe she wasn't just a pawn in Christian's game. Maybe, with a bit of unexpected solidarity, they could both emerge from this arrangement with more than they ever anticipated. The morning light filtered through the penthouse's wide windows, illuminating the sleek, open-concept living area where Maya stood, reviewing a glossy invite in her hands. The thick, embossed cardstock read, "Annual Philanthropy Gala, Blanton Museum of Art, a date 2 weeks away. Though she'd known about the upcoming event for some time, holding the official invitation made the reality all the more daunting. She set it down on the marble countertop, her stomach knotting. The name Liam Murphy loomed large in her mind. Christian had explained that the gala would be the pivotal moment to seal or break the deal with Murphy, his chance to show the investor he was settled, stable, and engaged to a respectable woman. For Maya, it meant stepping into the center of a performance bigger than any they'd staged before. Clara emerged from the hallway, tapping briskly on her phone. "Morning. Let me guess, you're thinking about the gala?" Maya let out a shaky breath. "I can't believe I'll be expected to mingle with Austin's elite at a museum, all while pretending to be Christian's fiancée. I'm still reeling from the last event." Clara's lips curved into a sympathetic smile. "You've come a long way since that dinner. Word around town is, you two make a striking couple. People seem less skeptical than you might think." Maya felt a flicker of relief. Then her mind drifted to Carl Peterson. What about Carl? I'm sure he's still poking around, trying to find a hole in our story. Clara sighed. I won't lie. He's been dropping pointed comments about you and Christian. He's too smooth to show outright hostility. But watch yourself at the gala. If there's an opportunity to undermine Christian in front of Murphy, Carl will take it. Maya swallowed hard. Great. Another layer of pressure. Clara placed a reassuring hand on her arm. Just stay calm. I'll make sure you have everything you need. Wardrobe, schedule, even talking points if it helps. And remember, Christian's counting on you. Despite what people say, he doesn't trust easily. So if he's brought you this far, it means he believes you can handle it. Before Maya could reply, the elevator doors chimed and Christian stepped out, looking polished in a crisp navy suit. He offered Maya a curt nod. We have a few things to go over, he said, placing his leather briefcase on the counter. First, I spoke to Liam Murphy this morning. He's aware we'll both be at the gala. He's expressed interest in meeting us beforehand for a casual lunch, nothing official, but he wants to gauge us as a couple. Maya's heart fluttered. When? This weekend, Christian answered. A small restaurant near the river. Apparently, he likes to keep these meetings low-key. No press, no entourage, just conversation. He paused, gaze flicking to her. We'll need to be prepared. Prepared to pretend, Maya said quietly, biting her lip. That we're in love, devoted, thinking about the future. I'm still learning how to hold a champagne flute properly. Now I have to navigate a one-on-one chat with the investor who could make or break your career. Christian's tone softened. I know it's a lot, but you've been doing well. We'll run through some basics about our relationship, how we met, favorite shared activities, that kind of thing. He lifted one shoulder. It's not so different from the story we told at the dinner, just more detailed. Maya nodded, feeling a ripple of anxiety. Right. Clara cleared her throat gently. If you two want privacy to discuss your narrative, I'll step out. Christian shook his head. Not yet. I also need to mention Carl. Rumor has it he's secured an invitation to the gala through a friend. Knowing him, he'll try to plant doubts in Liam's mind, maybe by cornering you or me with prying questions. Maya exhaled shakily. Then I'll be ready to sidestep anything he throws at me. Good, Christian said. He looked at Clara. Could you book Maya some sessions with the stylist next week? I want to make sure she's comfortable with the gown and has any accessories she needs. Clara nodded briskly. Already in motion. After Clara left, the tension in the air seemed to magnify. Maya hesitated, then spoke softly. Christian, about the gala. There's something else bothering me. People expect an engaged couple to be affectionate, to have inside jokes, stories about each other's families. We barely talk about our personal histories. His expression flickered. I know. We'll need to fix that. He rubbed the back of his neck, looking uncharacteristically hesitant. Maybe we should set aside some time each evening to just talk. You can ask me questions, I'll ask you questions. We'll learn each other's histories, enough to sound genuine. Maya's surprise melted into cautious warmth. I'd like that. He cleared his throat, as if self-conscious. So would I. They lingered in silence. The notion of spending time discussing who they truly were beyond this charade felt both promising and risky. What if they uncovered truths that made this deal more complicated? Still, Maya recognized that, for the act to hold, authenticity had to emerge from somewhere genuine. Eventually, Christian looked at his watch. I have a meeting downtown. Let's plan to talk tonight, 8 p.m. here. We can order takeout, if you prefer. That sounds nice, she managed, heart thumping for reasons she couldn't fully name. He grabbed his briefcase and left without another word, leaving Maya alone with her swirling thoughts. The hush of the penthouse enveloped her. She glanced down at the invitation again, reading each embossed letter: Blanton Museum of Art, Annual Philanthropy Gala. 2 weeks from now, she'd be on display with Christian, eyes from every social corner of Austin upon them, and if all went well, they'd move one step closer to solidifying the deal. If all went wrong, everything could crumble. Her $1 million agreement, his business plans, maybe even the tentative bond they were starting to form. She picked up the invitation and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing out at the city. The roads below bustled with cars, buses, people going about their ordinary lives. Her old self, the Maya who poured coffee in a simple diner uniform, felt so distant. But if she closed her eyes, she could still smell the faint aroma of bacon grease and hear the clatter of dishes. A small flutter of panic rose in her chest. The stakes were so high, yet she'd come too far to turn back now. The contract bound her, but so did her own ambition, the longing to break free of an existence where her dreams remained half-written in a battered notebook. She told herself she had to make it through the gala. She had to stand confidently beside Christian and show Liam Murphy they were every bit the loving, supportive couple. In that quiet moment, Maya couldn't shake the sense that events were converging toward a point of no return. Her heart pounded with a mix of anticipation and dread, telling her that these coming weeks would shape her life in ways she couldn't yet imagine. And all she could do was brace herself for whatever might unfold next. Later that evening, Maya found Christian in the penthouse's open living area. The lights were dimmed, offering a panoramic view of Austin's twinkling skyline. She'd ordered takeout from a local Thai place, Pad See for her, green curry for him, hoping to ease the tension with comforting food. He set aside his phone when she approached. Thanks, he said, accepting the carton of curry. I haven't had a proper meal all day. They sat down at the glass dining table. For a moment, they ate in silence, the city's glow reflecting on the polished surface. Maya forced a few bites, but her nerves made it hard to enjoy the meal. Eventually, she cleared her throat. So, where do we start? You said we should learn more about each other. Christian placed his chopsticks aside, taking a moment to gather his thoughts. Yes, Murphy will expect us to have inside knowledge of each other's backgrounds. So, maybe start with something simple. Birthdays, childhood, that sort of thing? Maya nodded, pressing her lips together. All right, I'm a Capricorn, January 1st, ironically enough. New Year's baby. She paused. I grew up in a small house on the edge of Austin. My parents worked a lot. Dad was in construction. Mom did part-time bookkeeping. I was an only child. He listened intently, his eyes more subdued than usual. And they, encouraged your writing? A sad smile flickered across her face. My mom did. She used to read my little stories and poems. She passed away a few years ago, though. Christian's gaze shifted, like he wasn't sure how to respond. I'm sorry. That must have been hard. She swallowed the lump in her throat. It was. But she left me with that belief. Keep writing, keep dreaming. The air held a quiet gravity. Maya reached for a sip of water, trying to steady herself. Your turn, she said softly, hoping to keep the exchange balanced. He nodded, eyes drifting to the city lights. I was born in a rough part of Houston. My dad wasn't around much. My mom juggled 2 jobs to keep us afloat. By the time I was in high school, I wanted out of that cycle of not having enough. I studied like crazy, got scholarships, eventually ended up at UT Austin for computer science. Then I founded Cole Innovations. Maya felt a pang of recognition. He wasn't the privileged heir she'd assumed. So you fought your way up, she murmured. No wonder you push yourself so hard. He exhaled, tension feathering the lines around his eyes. When you spend your childhood scrabbling for every resource, success feels like the only safe place. I've built a life where I control everything, my company, my finances, my image. He hesitated. But it's not as simple as it looks from the outside. She softened. I can imagine. Must be lonely, in a way. Something flickered in his gaze. Surprise, perhaps. It can be. Not many people see past the persona. Most just want a piece of what I have. Maya took another bite of noodles, letting silence settle before asking the next question. So, why the diner? You came in almost every day, but you always seemed so distant. He gave a wry chuckle. I needed a place to clear my head, somewhere normal, away from corporate lunches and fancy restaurants. The diner was routine, predictable, and I could sit there lost in my own thoughts without anyone bothering me. Though I guess I bothered you. She let out a soft laugh, remembering his rude remarks. A bit, yeah. He ran a hand through his hair. I'm not proud of how I acted. I didn't mean to come off as a jerk. Then why did you? He paused, searching for the words. Stress, mostly, and this sounds pathetic, but I found it easier to keep a distance from people, to avoid small talk or any real conversation. You seemed polite but persistent in your kindness. I wasn't used to that. Her heart gave a slight pang. Well, I'm not exactly polite all the time, but I try to be decent. He nodded. That's more than most. Anyway, I'm sorry. She pressed her chopsticks to her lips, studying him closely. Apology accepted. They continued trading questions, covering trivial details like favorite foods, best friends, college memories. Maya learned Christian had a fondness for old jazz records, a taste inherited from his mother. He discovered she loved thunderstorms, often writing her most emotional poetry during heavy downpours. An hour slipped by without either noticing. Their empty takeout cartons littered the table, the conversation shifting from rehearsed necessity to something that felt almost natural. Then Christian's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and frowned. I need to take this. It's related to the Murphy deal. Maya nodded, a tendril of disappointment curling inside her. Sure, go ahead. He stood, stepping away to speak in low tones. Left alone, Maya stared at the remnants of their meal, reflecting on how strange it was that in the midst of a staged relationship, they'd just shared a moment of genuine connection. She found herself wanting more honesty, more glimpses of his vulnerabilities and regrets. But the flip side terrified her. If they got too close, would it complicate everything? The contract was clear. They were partners in a deception, not a real couple. She couldn't forget that. The minute the deal was done, their engagement would end. Still, as Christian paced near the window, phone pressed to his ear, she felt an unexpected pang of protectiveness. He looked tense, burdened by the weight of negotiations. She understood that feeling, fighting for survival, for a better life. Maybe, just maybe, they had more in common than either of them had ever realized. She rose from her chair, tossing the empty cartons in the trash. In the reflection of the glass walls, she saw him end the call, shoulders sagging. Their eyes met, and a subtle look passed between them, an acknowledgement that tonight they'd crossed a boundary from strangers to something else. Maybe not friends, and certainly not lovers, but two souls who recognized each other's struggles beneath the layers of pretense. Over the next few days, Maya and Christian continued their evening study sessions, steadily building a credible tapestry of shared experiences. She found herself looking forward to those times, an intimate corner of the penthouse where they exchanged laughter, stories, even mild teasing. It made the rest of the charade feel less forced, yet tension brewed beneath the surface. Carl Peterson's presence in their social circles, Liam Murphy's growing curiosity, and the looming gala all created a pressure cooker. Maya sensed Christian growing more restless, his phone buzzing incessantly with business updates. One afternoon, after an especially draining shift at the diner, she still worked a couple of days to keep up appearances, Maya returned to the penthouse and found Christian in a rare, stormy mood. He paced in the living area, phone in one hand and a stack of papers in the other. The moment he saw her, he snapped, "Where have you been? I needed to discuss something urgent." His tone set her on edge. She dropped her purse onto a nearby chair. "I was at the diner. You know I still have shifts there." He waved the papers. "And you didn't think to keep your phone on." She bristled. "It's not like I can check messages every second while waiting tables." "What's going on?" Christian exhaled sharply, tossing the papers onto the coffee table. "Carl is stirring up more trouble. He's apparently been hinting to one of Murphy's associates that our relationship is a sham, and Murphy's schedule has changed. He wants to meet us tomorrow, not next weekend, for a private dinner instead of lunch." Maya felt her stomach twist. "Tomorrow? That doesn't give us much time to prepare." He raked a hand through his hair. "I know. Everything is accelerating. If Murphy believes Carl's rumors, we'll lose him before the gala even arrives. Everything I've built could collapse, so I need you to keep your focus." She tensed, disliking the way he phrased it. "I've been focused. I'm doing everything you've asked." He turned to face her, eyes blazing with frustration. "Everything I asked. You're the waitress I paid $1 million to help me. Remember, this is the request." "It's not optional." The words sliced through the air like a knife. Maya felt her cheeks burn, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. She'd known their arrangement was transactional, but hearing him fling it at her in such a raw, dismissive way stung fiercely. She forced herself to speak calmly, though her voice shook. "So that's all I am to you? A waitress you paid off? A prop in your grand performance?" Christian's jaw tightened. "It's not that simple. I'm under a tremendous amount of pressure. I can't afford for you to slip up." "Slip up?" She recoiled, anger flaring. "I have been working to keep this charade alive, learning your stories, shopping for clothes I'd never otherwise wear, practicing your precious etiquette. I'm the one who has to act like I'm in love with someone who barely respects me." He opened his mouth, then closed it, struggling to find a response. But the damage was done. The air crackled with tension and hurt. Maya shook her head, stepping back. "I know I agreed to this, but I'm still a human being, Christian. You don't get to throw the money in my face every time something goes wrong." For a moment, he looked genuinely regretful, but pride kept his expression rigid. "Look, if I was out of line, I apologize, but you have to see how high the stakes are for me." "And what about my stakes?" she interrupted, voice trembling. "I'm sacrificing my integrity for your corporate ambitions. I'm lying to my friends, to the world, and what do I get in return? $1 million? Sure, but also the constant reminder that I'm just an employee to you." Silence fell, thick and suffocating. Christian's phone rang, but he ignored it, his gaze locked on Maya. Finally, she brushed past him, heading toward her bedroom suite. "I'm done talking right now. I need some air, or I'm going to say something we'll both regret." He didn't move to stop her. Behind her, his voice echoed softly, laced with remorse. "Maya, wait." But she was gone, shutting the door firmly. She stood in the center of the spacious bedroom, heart pounding. Her eyes landed on her notebooks, stacked neatly on the desk, a painful reminder of the creative passion she'd buried under this elaborate ruse. Tears slipped down her cheeks, unbidden. Why did his words cut so deeply? Because, a small voice whispered, part of you wanted to believe you were more than just a transaction to him. And now you're terrified that you were wrong. She dropped onto the edge of the bed, letting anger and hurt wash over her. The memory of Christian's biting remark echoed in her mind. "You're the waitress I paid $1 million to help me." She thought of Sophia's warnings, "Don't lose yourself in all of this." Right now, Maya felt dangerously close to losing herself. A light knock at the door jolted her. She wiped her eyes, uncertain whether she wanted to let him in. But after a moment, she pressed her palm to the handle and opened it a crack. Christian stood there, tension etched into his expression. He looked, for once, genuinely apologetic. "I was out of line," he said quietly, his gaze darting away. "I shouldn't have said that." She swallowed hard. "I'm not in the mood to talk," he nodded, stepping back. "All right, but I'm sorry, Maya." Closing the door again, she leaned against it, tears threatening once more. Something about hearing her name in his voice, spoken so softly, tugged at her chest. This was the biggest fight they'd had, a confrontation that peeled back the layer of forced politeness they'd maintained. Tomorrow, they'd have to face Liam Murphy. Tonight, all she wanted was to be alone. Maya barely slept, replaying Christian's harsh words in her mind. By morning, she was hollow-eyed and tense, running on coffee fumes as she dressed for the meeting with Liam Murphy. She chose a knee-length navy dress, conservative yet classy, and tied her hair into a neat low bun. Her reflection stared back at her in the mirror, an outward picture of composure, while inside she felt raw and exposed. When she stepped into the living room, Christian was waiting, already dressed in a tailored suit. He turned, the same regretful look crossing his features as their eyes met. "Morning," he said softly. "Shall we talk before we go?" She hugged her arms around herself. "We don't have time. Murphy is expecting us soon." He took a careful step closer. "Maya, about yesterday." Her throat felt tight. "Please, let's just get this over with." "We can't afford to be late." He pressed his lips together, nodding slowly. "Right, then let's go." They rode down in silence, tension filling the elevator's confines. She tried to focus on the conversation points they'd practiced, the subtle gestures of affection they were supposed to display, but all she could feel was the sting of his earlier words, the sense that she was nothing more than a hired accomplice. Once they reached the restaurant, a cozy spot near Lady Bird Lake, they found Liam Murphy already seated at a private table, a man in his early 50s, with kindly brown eyes and a mane of graying hair. He rose to greet them. "Christian, good to see you again. And you must be Maya." He smiled warmly, extending his hand. Maya forced a bright expression. "Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Murphy." He waved dismissively. "Oh, call me Liam, please. We're here for a casual meal, not a board meeting." They settled into their chairs, and a waiter took their drink orders. Maya requested iced tea, hoping the caffeine might keep her nerves at bay. Christian asked for water, his posture stiff but courteous. "So," Liam began once the waiter left. "I've been hearing a lot about this whirlwind engagement. How exciting for both of you." "Congratulations." "Thank you," Maya answered automatically, placing her hand lightly on Christian's arm, just as they'd rehearsed. Liam's gaze flitted between them. "Mind if I ask how you two met? Christian was vague last time. Said something about a chance encounter at a benefit fundraiser." Maya's heart pounded. The storyline they'd crafted was second nature by now. The fundraiser, the shared interest in local community projects, their immediate bond. She recited the details, her voice steady despite the emotional turmoil inside. Christian chimed in, adding tiny anecdotes. They laughed at memories of a date that never happened. To any outsider, it sounded sweet, even believable. Liam smiled, clearly charmed. "It's refreshing to see genuine affection. You know, I'm a big believer that a stable personal life often translates to better business judgment. Helps keep a man grounded." Christian nodded, and for the first time that day, Maya saw a shadow of anxiety in his eyes. If Liam only knew the truth, that this relationship was built on shaky foundations and last night's fight had torn open some real wounds. They ordered lunch, exchanging polite small talk about Austin's growth, philanthropic causes, and Liam's various investment interests. While Liam spoke passionately about the importance of community, Maya sneaked glances at Christian. He was composed, but every once in a while, their gazes caught, and she felt the echo of last night's pain. Eventually, Liam leaned forward, eyes narrowing slightly. "I've heard some odd rumors, though," he said gently, as if reluctant to offend. "A few people in certain circles question how quickly this engagement came about, given Christian's history as a bachelor. I don't want to pry, but I'm sure you know how the grapevine can be." Christian stiffened, but Maya jumped in, channeling all the heartfelt sincerity she could muster. "Sometimes life surprises you," she said softly, letting her eyes shift toward Christian in a faux display of longing. "We might come from different worlds, but it just felt right. And yes, we've had our share of skeptics." She forced a light laugh. "But we wouldn't be doing this if we weren't sure." "Right, honey?" She wrapped her hand around his. Christian placed his other hand atop hers, warmth flickering in his expression. "Absolutely," he said, though his voice was quieter than usual. "Our connection might seem sudden, but it's real." For a moment, the intensity in his gaze felt like a confession, and Maya's heart lurched. She wondered if he was thinking about their fight and whether he regretted it. Or perhaps he was just playing the part as meticulously as ever. Liam studied them both, then gave a slow nod. "It's your life, of course. I only ask because I value transparency. I've seen too many business deals complicated by personal drama." The rest of the meal passed more smoothly. Liam seemed reassured, and by the time they paid the bill, he wore a genial smile. "I look forward to seeing you both at the gala." "I believe good things are on the horizon," he said, shaking Christian's hand and giving Maya a polite nod. They parted ways outside the restaurant. Once Liam drove off, Maya and Christian released a collective breath. For a moment, they stood on the sidewalk, the midday sun bearing down. She finally broke the silence. "I think that went okay." Christian nodded, stepping closer. He seemed convinced. He hesitated, eyes shadowed with unspoken guilt. "Listen, about last night." She held up a hand. "Let's go somewhere quieter. I don't want to rehash this in the street." He agreed, gesturing toward his car. During the ride back, neither spoke much. The rawness between them was palpable, a knot neither knew how to untangle. Once they arrived at the penthouse, Maya slipped off her heels, flexing her aching toes on the cool marble floor. Christian waited until she'd gathered her thoughts. Then in a low voice, he said, "I'm sorry. I lashed out, and it was unfair. This arrangement is tearing at me. I never wanted to hurt you, Maya. She studied his face, seeing more vulnerability than she had before. You did hurt me, she admitted, her voice trembling. I was beginning to trust you, and then you made me feel like a bought item. He ran a hand over his jaw. It was a horrible thing to say. I can't undo it, but I can try to prove that you're more than that to me. His gaze darted away. The truth is, these last few weeks, I've started to rely on you in ways I didn't expect. A wave of conflicting emotions surged through her, anger, longing, caution. She wanted to believe him, to see the man beneath the business facade, but fear still lingered. Finally, she whispered, I need time. And a reason to trust that you won't revert to seeing me as just the waitress you paid. He nodded solemnly. You have my word. I'm not perfect, but I want to make this right. In the hush that followed, they stood inches apart, each grappling with the delicate truce forming between them. Outside, the skyline shimmered, but all Maya could sense was the fragile bond they held in this moment, two individuals caught in a web of lies, yet yearning for something real beneath it all. For the next few days, a tentative peace settled over the penthouse. Maya and Christian navigated their routine, his long hours at Cole Innovations, her part-time stints at the diner, and shared evenings refining their story for the upcoming gala. Though the sting of their fight lingered, both made conscious efforts to be civil, even gentle, with one another. It was Clara who delivered the latest news that shattered the calm. One evening, while Maya and Christian were reviewing a list of potential gala attendees, Clara slipped in, carrying her ever-present tablet. I've got an update you'll want to hear, she said, a note of caution in her tone. Christian turned from the window. Go on. Carl Peterson is ramping up his efforts. He's been meeting discreetly with a few local socialites who'll be at the gala. Word is he's planting rumors about your relationship being fake. She glanced at Maya sympathetically. He also hinted that you, Maya, might have a colorful past. Maya's pulse spiked. Colorful? I've barely done anything but wait tables and write poems. Clara shrugged, eyes troubled. Carl doesn't care if it's true. He just wants enough doubt swirling around that Murphy will question the engagement. A single piece of gossip well placed could prompt Murphy to withhold his investment. Christian's expression hardened. Carl's playing dirty, as always. I need to neutralize this. Maya's hands trembled. How do we stop him from telling lies? Christian paced, agitation crackling in the air. He's no fool. He won't make public accusations without evidence, but he'll keep dropping insinuations. We need to make our story so convincing that any rumor Carl spreads falls flat. Easier said than done, Maya thought, swallowing the knot in her throat. Then we have to be perfect at the gala, no slip-ups, but that alone won't stop Carl from cornering me or you with tricky questions. Clara nodded in agreement. He could also talk to the press if he's feeling bold. A scandalous article about a phony engagement would get traction, especially with Christian's prominence in the tech scene. Christian exhaled slowly. We'll have to be on guard. Maybe I can talk to some contacts in the media. Warn them about Carl's potential misinformation. Maya felt a swirl of frustration and fear. Every day, this arrangement seemed more precarious. She'd thought the brunt of the difficulty would lie in faking affection at social events, but now it felt like they were warding off a smear campaign. Okay, she said, regaining a measure of calm. Let's map out the potential angles Carl might use. First, he might claim I'm just a hired actress, basically the truth, but we have to deny it. Second, he might say I was after Christian's money. Third, he could question why Christian, a known lone wolf, suddenly wants to settle down. We have counters for each, right? Clara tapped notes onto her tablet. Yes, And we can also prepare statements if the media approaches. Keep them vague, yet confident, no details that could trip us up. Christian paused his pacing to study Maya. You're good at thinking on your feet. This is helpful. A flush of warmth flickered in her cheeks. Let's hope I don't freeze if Carl confronts me directly. That night, Maya retreated to her suite, heart buzzing with anxiety. She locked the door, sinking onto the bed to flip through her notebook. Writing had always been her escape, but the words came slowly, sticky with dread. She penned a few stanzas about deception and vulnerability, lines brimming with raw emotion she couldn't express aloud. Her phone chimed, a message from Sophia. Hey, how's penthouse life? You okay? Don't forget I exist, babe. Maya typed a quick reply, promising to visit soon, though she dreaded having to maintain the half-truth about her engagement. She wished she could spill the whole story to Sophia. The weight of secrets pressed on her chest like a stone. A light knock at the door pulled her attention. She set her notebook aside and opened it to find Christian in the hallway, hands in his pockets. A flicker of uncertainty danced across his features. Can we talk? She hesitated, then nodded. Sure. He stepped inside, casting a glance around the room that had become her private haven. His gaze lingered on the notebook on the bed, but he didn't pry. Instead, he spoke softly. I just wanted to see how you're feeling, about everything. Carl, the gala, us. Her heartbeat stuttered at the mention of us. She folded her arms protectively. I'm worried, if I'm honest. Everything feels like it's teetering on the edge. One wrong move, and it all collapses. He nodded, stepping closer. I understand. I'm trying to handle Carl through my usual channels, but he's slippery. And I hate dragging you into this mess. She let out a humorless laugh. I chose to be here. I took your money after all. He flinched, regret crossing his face. I know. I'm sorry for reminding you of that in anger. You deserve better. Maya swallowed the knot in her throat. Part of her longed to accept his contrition, let herself trust him more, but the memory of his harsh words still stung. We have to face the reality. This started as a transaction, but it's become complicated. Complicated, he echoed. Yes, I never planned to actually care about your comfort, your feelings, but I do. Her cheeks warmed, her heart fluttering with a confusing mix of apprehension and hope. I don't know how to respond. He stepped even closer, enough that she could see the faint worry lines around his eyes. You don't have to respond now. Just know that I'm not looking at you like a prop anymore. His voice dropped, nearly a whisper. You matter to me, Maya. The vulnerability in his tone tugged at her. She remembered all the times she'd watched him from behind the diner counter, labeling him as nothing but rude and self-centered. Now she saw fragments of a man weighed down by burdens, trying awkwardly to connect. A part of her ached to return that sincerity, but fear lingered. There's too much at stake, she whispered back. Can we really sort out our feelings in the middle of this circus? He exhaled. I don't have all the answers, but if we stay honest with each other, truly honest, maybe we have a chance to come out of this unscathed. She offered a small, tremulous nod. Maybe. They stood there, the silence brimming with an unspoken promise to do better. Outside, the city lights glimmered against the night sky, and in that moment, the tension between them felt less like a threat and more like the electricity of possibility. Finally, Christian stepped back, giving her space. We'll figure this out, he said quietly, retreating toward the door. You're not alone, Maya. When he left, she leaned against the wall, heart thudding. Carl's schemes, the looming gala, the precarious nature of their arrangement, it all swirled around her. Yet, beneath the chaos, a strange glimmer of hope sparked. They had formed an alliance, fragile though it was, and if they handled Carl carefully, They might just survive the storm awaiting them at the Blanton Museum. On the evening of the Blanton Museum of Art's annual gala, Maya stood in front of the penthouse's tall mirror, barely recognizing her reflection. Her hair was swept into a graceful updo, a few soft waves framing her face. The gown, a deep emerald satin that clung gently to her curves, felt more luxurious than anything she'd ever worn. A hint of smoky eyeshadow lent her a certain poise she wasn't sure she truly possessed. She turned at the sound of footsteps. Christian, dressed in a sleek black tux, paused in the doorway. His gaze swept over her, and for a moment the tension of the past weeks softened on his face. "You look stunning," he murmured. Her cheeks warmed, though she tried to keep her expression steady. "Thanks. Clara has an impeccable eye." He stepped forward, offering his arm with quiet formality. "Ready?" "I think so," she replied, heart pounding. A million questions whirled in her mind. Would Carl pull some stunt? Would Liam Murphy suspect them of being frauds? Would Christian revert to his ruthless side if cornered? They rode the private elevator down to the foyer in silence. Outside, a sleek black car waited to whisk them to the museum. The night air carried a mild chill, and Maya shivered slightly, more from nerves than cold. Christian guided her into the car, and within minutes they were gliding through downtown Austin's lights, past modern high-rises and historic buildings alike. When they arrived at the Blanton Museum, Maya's breath caught at the sight of cameras flashing, luxury vehicles lining the entrance, and impeccably dressed guests streaming inside. The museum itself stood bathed in soft illumination, grand and imposing. A red carpet, more symbolic than literal, led them up the stone steps. Christian gently placed a hand at the small of her back. "We'll walk in together," he said under his breath. "Smile. Act confident." Her heart hammered, but she nodded. Keeping her posture elegant, she eased forward, matching Christian's measured stride. Photographers snapped photos, though Maya guessed the real celebrities were likely behind them. Still, she felt the spotlight's weight, an unspoken question echoing through the crowd. Who is the woman on Christian Cole's arm? Inside the museum's grand atrium, a live string quartet played softly. Waiters wove through the crowd with trays of champagne. The walls were adorned with dramatic works of modern art, and voices buzzed with refined excitement. Maya tightened her hold on Christian's arm, scanning the sea of well-groomed faces for familiar ones. They didn't wait long before Liam Murphy approached, his lined face brightening. "Christian, Maya, you both look marvelous. What a night, huh?" Maya smiled warmly, hoping it concealed her nerves. "It's quite breathtaking," she agreed. "I've never seen the Blanton look so magical." Liam nodded. "This gala is always a highlight. Let's catch up later, all right? I promised my wife I'd escort her to the cocktail lounge." With a polite nod, he melted back into the throng. Christian exhaled softly. "At least he seems in good spirits." Maya's relief was short-lived. Out of the corner of her eye, she spotted Carl Peterson, dressed impeccably in a charcoal suit, leaning against a marble pillar. He wore a faint smirk as he surveyed the room. The moment he noticed them, he lifted his champagne flute in a mock toast. Christian tensed. "Stay close," he muttered. "He'll try something." They mingled with the crowd, greeting business associates and acquaintances, ensuring Maya played the role of attentive fiancée. With each handshake, each polite laugh, Maya's anxiety built. She felt like a tightrope walker. Any small misstep would bring her crashing down. Occasionally, Christian offered her a reassuring squeeze of her hand, but she could sense his own simmering worry. Half an hour in, Maya excused herself to find the ladies' room. She needed a moment to breathe. The marble corridor she slipped into was quieter, lined with paintings from Texan artists. She paused near one particularly serene landscape, letting the soft hush soothe her frayed nerves. but footsteps behind her made her spine stiffen. She turned to see Carl Peterson approaching, a casual swagger in his step. He offered a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You're even more lovely up close, Maya. That dress suits you." Her pulse quickened. "Thank you," she replied, voice polite but guarded. Carl glanced at the painting, feigning interest. "You know, rumors are swirling tonight. People love to chat, especially about Christian Cole's sudden engagement. It's quite the topic." She forced a light laugh. "Yes, well, I can't control what people say." His gaze pinned her. "No, you can't. But I wonder, are you finding this life to your liking? Some folks claim you come from a humble background." Maya's stomach twisted. "I'm not sure why that matters. Christian and I are happy." Carl sipped his champagne. "Are you a quick courtship? Hush, hush. And then there's your ambiguous past. You're quite the enigma." Her jaw clenched. "If you're looking for scandal, I'm afraid you're out of luck." He leaned in slightly, voice dropping. "We'll see. Enjoy the gala, Maya. Perhaps by the end of the night, we'll have a clearer picture of who you really are." With a smirk, he turned and strolled off. She inhaled shakily, fighting the urge to snap back. That was the first time Carl had confronted her alone, and it felt like he was testing how easily she'd crack. Part of her wanted to march up to him and demand he keep his nose out of her business. But she knew better. Any outburst would only fuel his suspicions. Composing herself, she re-entered the bustling main hall. Christian spotted her instantly and wove through the crowd. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly, noticing her unsettled expression. "Carl found me," she murmured. "He's definitely probing for weaknesses." Christian's expression darkened. "We'll handle him. Let's just stick to each other and be consistent." A voice crackled over the museum's sound system, announcing dinner would soon be served in the grand ballroom. Groups began drifting in that direction. Liam Murphy caught Maya's eye from across the foyer, offering a small wave. Maya looped her arm through Christian's. "Right. Let's be the perfect couple." They glided into the ballroom, an expansive space bathed in soft light. Round tables with crisp linens filled the room, each adorned with elaborate centerpieces. The hum of voices and gentle clink of silverware created an elegant symphony. Maya focused on each measured step, recalling her training in etiquette, remembering the bits of conversation that would make them sound genuinely enamored. The night was only beginning, and already the tension felt suffocating. Carl lurked somewhere in the crowd, waiting to strike. Liam Murphy seemed open-minded but still watchful, and every swirl of Maya's gown reminded her that all eyes were on them. She took a seat next to Christian, their chairs angled close. "We can do this," she whispered, steadying the tremor in her voice. His hand found hers under the table, fingers lacing together. "Yes," he agreed, quietly resolute. "We can." Shortly after dinner began, the lights dimmed, drawing everyone's attention to the stage at the front of the ballroom. A well-known philanthropist was introducing the night's charity focus, educational programs for underprivileged youth. Maya tried to concentrate on the speech, clapping when appropriate, exchanging polite murmurs with Christian and the others at their table. But her nerves prickled, ever aware of Carl's presence. She spotted him a few tables away, locked in conversation with a couple of local journalists. Anxiety coiled tight in her stomach. What is he saying? Christian must have sensed her worry. He leaned in, whispering at her ear, "Relax. Don't let him see you rattled." She managed a faint nod, returning her focus to the program. A brief auction segment began, with attendees bidding on art pieces to benefit the cause. Christian raised his paddle once, winning a painting with a calmly stated sum. The table applauded. Maya's heart pounded. This display of generosity would help reinforce the idea that Christian was a man of substance and stability. Good for the narrative, yet she caught glimpses of Carl weaving through the crowd, occasionally glancing their way. Her cheeks burned at the memory of his veiled threats in the hallway. The tension built until chai between courses. Carl finally made his approach. He slid up to their table with a polished smile. "Christian," he greeted, tone civil, "I just wanted to congratulate you on that art piece. A fine addition to your collection." Christian's face remained impassive. "Thank you, Carl. Always a pleasure seeing you." Carl turned to Maya. "And Maya, you're ravishing tonight. I was telling my friends how captivating I find your mysterious background." He paused, letting the insinuation linger. Maya felt Christian's grip tighten on her hand under the table. "It's hardly mysterious, Carl. I just value my privacy," she said, trying to keep her voice light. Carl raised his eyebrows in mock sympathy. "Of course, privacy is vital, though sometimes privacy can hide inconvenient truths." Christian's cool facade cracked. "Don't you have another table to harass?" he snapped, voice low. A hush settled around their immediate vicinity. Maya noticed a few onlookers shifting in their seats. Curious. Carl smirked, glancing over his shoulder to ensure they had an audience. Now, no need for hostility. I'm simply curious about your fiancé's miraculous transformation from diner waitress to society debutante. Quite a fairy tale." Maya's pulse roared in her ears. She forced a tight smile. "You say that like people can't improve their circumstances. Or buy them," Carl retorted, "though rumors abound that money changed hands for this arrangement. Wouldn't that be a scandal?" Christian stood, pushing his chair back with deliberate force. "Leave, Carl. You're making a spectacle." Carl stood as well, tilting his head. "Oh, I do apologize. I had no intention of causing a scene. I simply care about the truth. Isn't that what Liam Murphy values?" Honesty, sincerity, murmurs rippled through nearby tables. Maya's cheeks flamed, dread gnawing at her. She could see Liam Murphy observing from across the ballroom, confusion and concern etched on his features. This was the exact scenario they'd feared. Carl publicly insinuating a fraud, summoning her courage. Maya rose as well. "You accuse me of being a sham, but you have no proof," she stated, voice trembling with anger. "I fell for Christian, and he fell for me." End of story. Carl spread his hands, as though benevolent. Yes, perhaps it's all above board, but the speed of it, the lack of any visible backstory, it does raise questions. He trailed off, letting speculation fill the air. Christian's jaw tightened. "We have nothing to prove to you." Carl's eyes gleamed. "Of course not, but you may have something to prove to Murphy. That is, if he's still interested in your deal after tonight." A silence fell, thick with anticipation. Maya's heart pounded as she realized the damage was done. Carl had sown enough doubt to tarnish Christian's credibility. Even if they smoothed things over later, the seeds of suspicion were planted. "Let's go," Christian muttered, taking Maya's hand. He guided her away from the table, ignoring the stares. She sensed the weight of 100 eyes tracking their every move. Anxiety prickled her skin. They couldn't just vanish from the gala. That would look like an admission of guilt. They made it as far as a side corridor before Liam Murphy intercepted them. "Christian Maya," he said, voice laced with concern. "I'm sorry to intrude, but that scene, what was Carl insinuating?" Christian's shoulders tensed. "He's stirring trouble. You know how he is." Liam nodded slowly, searching both their faces. "I've done business with Carl before. He can be devious, but he's rarely without some angle. Please tell me there's no basis to these rumors." Maya's throat constricted. She opened her mouth, struggling to find words that would quell his doubts. Christian's gaze flicked to her, then back to Liam. "Carl has always wanted to undermine me. He'll say anything to sabotage the deal." Liam exhaled, troubled. "I don't want to see a good partnership ruined by personal drama. But I also can't ignore the whispers." "Let's speak privately soon, all right? I need reassurance." Christian nodded, but his expression was grim. Once Liam left, the corridor felt emptier, the hush more oppressive. Maya touched Christian's arm gently. "We can salvage this," she whispered, fighting back a swirl of panic. "We just have to show him the strength of our relationship." Christian's laughter was cold, devoid of humor. "Show him. We can't even show ourselves that sometimes." Her chest tightened at the echo of their doubts. "Then we try harder," she insisted, voice trembling, "because I'm not letting Carl's lies ruin everything we've worked for." For a moment, Christian's hard gaze softened. He pressed his palm against hers in a silent promise. "I'm sorry you got dragged into this. We'll figure it out." They returned to the ballroom, forcing smiles to keep up appearances, but the tension weighed on them like lead. With every polite conversation, every sip of champagne, Maya felt the sting of Carl's words. She wondered if the entire crowd was now dissecting their every gesture, trying to decide if she was truly Christian's beloved or just an actress in an elaborate ruse. Dinner concluded with polite applause for the organizers. People began drifting into smaller groups, exploring the museum's exhibits, but the mood around Christian and Maya felt palpably uncertain. In the distance, Carl still circulated like a predator circling wounded prey. Maya squared her shoulders, refusing to let tears gather in her eyes. This was the moment they'd trained for, the big test of their resolve. But in her heart, she couldn't deny the sinking fear. Carl's insinuations might have already achieved their effect, unraveling the carefully woven illusion piece by piece. And she wasn't sure how they'd stitch it back together before it all fell apart. As the gala's formal program wound down, the museum's vaulted halls opened for guests to wander among curated displays. Maya and Christian moved through a gallery of modern sculptures, each piece lit dramatically in the dim space. She gripped his arm a little tighter than necessary. He didn't complain. They paused by a dramatic steel installation that curved in swooping arcs. A handful of people milled nearby, though most had drifted to the next room. Maya used the relative quiet to steady her breath. "Carl's insinuations are out there now," she murmured. "How do we counter them?" Christian exhaled. "We can't confront him without proof he's lying. The best we can do is act unconcerned, display our bond, and hope Liam sees Carl's meddling for what it is." A voice behind them made them both jump. "Sometimes the best defense is honesty," said a low, warm tone. They turned to find Liam Murphy, hands in his pockets, regarding the steel sculpture with quiet fascination. "Beautiful piece, don't you think?" Christian cleared his throat. "Yes, quite." Liam turned to them, a small smile on his lips. "I'm not sure if now is the right moment, but I wanted to speak with you both. Carl's words rattled me. However, I also know Carl has a habit of twisting the truth." He paused, studying their faces. "Is there anything you want to tell me about your relationship?" Maya's heart pounded. This was the flashpoint. One version of the future involved them lying seamlessly, doubling down on the facade. Another involved them telling a partial truth. She thought of Christian's livelihood, her own dreams, the $1 million contract. Then she remembered the nights they'd spent opening up about their real stories. Fear wrestled with conscience. Christian took a measured breath. "Liam, I assure you, there's nothing scandalous here. Maya and I are from different worlds, but we've found common ground." Maya forced herself to speak, voice trembling with emotion she didn't entirely fabricate. Carl's trying to undermine Christian by painting me as some kind of opportunist. The truth is, we fell for each other. Quickly, yes, but sincerely. If that seems unlikely to some people, it's because they don't understand how things can change in an instant when you meet the right person. The ring on her finger felt heavy, a symbol of the very lie she was weaving. And yet, in the timbre of her words, there was a kernel of truth. She did feel a connection to Christian now, albeit tangled in deception. Liam listened carefully, then nodded. I see. Well, I've come to respect Christian's judgment in business. If he's chosen you, Maya, perhaps it's because he saw something genuine. Carl's cynicism can't define my investment decisions. His gaze flicked to Christian, but I'd be a fool not to consider the impact of negative press. You two need to show the public, beyond a doubt, that your engagement is real. The success of coal innovations could hinge on that perception. Christian's jaw clenched. We understand. We'll do what it takes. Liam gave a faint smile. Then I'm content for now, but be aware. Certain other investors are less patient. If they catch wind of a scandal, they might pull out. With that, Liam left, footsteps echoing down the hall. Maya let out a shaky breath, relief battling lingering fear. At least he's not walking away yet. Christian nodded, brow furrowed. We bought ourselves time. We need a decisive moment that convinces everyone, Carl included, that our relationship isn't staged. Just then, footsteps sounded again. Maya braced, expecting Carl, but it was only a museum staffer, politely announcing that a public Q&A with a featured artist was about to start in the next gallery. They nodded their thanks, and the staffer moved on. A handful of other guests drifted past, curious about the Q&A. Maya saw Carl in the distance, his predatory gaze sweeping the crowd. She steeled herself. He's not done. He'll keep circling until he either catches us in a lie or we collapse under the pressure. Christian placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we won't collapse. Liam said it himself, honesty. We can't exactly come clean about the entire arrangement, but maybe we can use the real pieces of our story to overshadow the false ones. He paused, something raw in his eyes. We just need to hold our ground. She nodded, her chest tight with determination. Right. The tension around them built as they heard hushed chatter. More guests were buzzing about Carl's confrontation. Maya's ears caught fragments like Christian Cole's fiancée, and Carl said something scandalous. It stoked her sense of impending disaster. They wandered deeper into the museum, seeking a quieter section. Passing a series of abstract paintings, they found a small alcove lit by recessed lights, displaying only one bold artwork. The hush was almost sacred here. Maya leaned against a smooth wall, closing her eyes briefly. Christian's voice, low and strained, broke the silence. Are you okay? She opened her eyes, meeting his anxious gaze. No, she admitted softly. But I won't break. He nodded, stepping closer until they stood face to face. I believe you, he whispered. The corners of his eyes creased with concern. His hand brushed hers, tentative. Before she could respond, a cough from behind made them spin. Carl stood in the alcove's entrance. Ah, there you are, sneaking away for a private chat. Heat flared in Maya's cheeks. She refused to back down. Looking for more dirt, Carl? He smirked. I was curious if the rumors might be confirmed by your own words. Something about an arrangement. Christian moved in front of Maya, voice dangerously calm. You've crossed a line. Leave us alone. Carl feigned innocence. I merely want to ensure no one's being misled. If it turns out this fairy tale romance is just an act, imagine the fallout. It'd be a pity, especially for Maya. His gaze flicked to her with predatory intent. She might get dragged down alongside you. Fury jolted through Maya. This man was threatening everything she'd worked for, her self-respect, her future as a writer. She stepped around Christian, chin lifted. "You won't intimidate me." Carl's smirk only grew. "We'll see." With that, he turned and strolled away, leaving them in fraught silence. A twist of nausea gripped Maya's stomach. Christian exhaled a shaky breath, brushing a hand across his brow. "He's pushing us toward a breaking point." She nodded, heart pounding. "Then let's not break." He stared at her with a mixture of fear and admiration. "Maya, after tonight, no matter what happens, I want you to know, I appreciate your courage. You've done more for me than I ever deserved." Her pulse fluttered, tears threatening at the back of her eyes. "I'm not giving up on you or on me." Clasping hands briefly, they moved back into the main corridors, united in defiance. The tension was almost unbearable, but they clung to each other, forging a fragile armor against Carl's encroaching threats. If honesty was their last line of defense, then perhaps they'd find a way to wield it, painful though it might be, to protect the fragile truth growing between them. As the gala wound toward its climax, guests were ushered into a grand gallery where the final presentations took place. Large white panels showcased the names of major donors, including Coal Innovations. Maya and Christian stood among the crowd, scanning the ornate space. The tension from earlier incidents simmered beneath the polished veneer of the event. A hush fell as the head curator took the podium, expressing gratitude for the evening's generosity. Applause rippled through the crowd, but Maya's focus remained on the swirl of thoughts in her mind. Carl's looming threat, Liam's wavering confidence, and the precarious nature of her bond with Christian. When the curator finished, the audience began dispersing, some heading for the exit, others lingering to chat. Maya turned to Christian, heart pounding. "Should we slip out quietly, or do we stay visible to prove we're not running?" He frowned. "If we disappear now, it might look suspicious. Let's speak to Liam one more time. Ensure everything seems fine." They found Liam in a small cluster of well-dressed attendees. His wife stood beside him, a gracious smile adorning her features. Liam greeted them warmly, but Maya sensed the questions in his eyes. She offered a cheerful front, inquiring about the success of the charity auction, praising the event's decor. Christian joined in, calm yet attentive. Just when it seemed they might make it through the night without another confrontation, Carl materialized like a shark drawn to the scent of blood. He stepped into the circle, offering a smooth greeting to Liam's wife, then shifting his focus to Christian and Maya. Her stomach twisted. Each encounter with him eroded her composure a little more. Carl coughed theatrically. "So, Christian, was it your idea or Maya's to make such a generous donation tonight?" "I believe a large contribution was pledged in both your names, correct?" Christian's jaw tightened. "We decided it together. We support the cause." Carl's gaze drifted to Maya. "What a charitable heart you have. Refresh my memory. Where did you develop such philanthropic sensibilities? Surely not at the diner on the outskirts of town." Maya's throat constricted. She refused to look away. "I don't think you need to grow up wealthy to believe in helping others." Carl smirked, turning slightly to address Liam. "Indeed, but it does raise interesting questions about how quickly one can adapt from a modest life to this level of generosity. Perhaps Christian has been coaching her." Liam's eyes narrowed, sensing the underlying hostility. "Carl, is there a point to your insinuations?" Carl shrugged, feigning innocence. "Simply that authenticity is crucial. If an engagement is genuine, philanthropic impulses flow naturally. But if it's part of a performance, well, I'd hate for you to be misled, Mr. Murphy." His gaze flicked to the crowd, as if daring them to overhear. Maya's heart hammered. The tension in the circle was palpable, bystanders inching closer to catch the drama. This is it, she thought. If we don't respond effectively, Carl wins. Suddenly, Christian turned to Liam, voice clear. I won't stand by while Carl slanders Maya. She's more sincere and hard-working than half the people in this room, including me. You want authenticity? Here it is. He reached for Maya's hand, drawing her beside him. She stood stiffly, uncertain what he intended, but determined to stand firm. Christian faced the onlookers, raising his voice. Yes, we come from different worlds. Yes, our engagement was sudden, but if that's anyone's business, it's ours. We believe in each other. His gaze landed on Carl, ice in his tone. You want to discredit me for your own gain? That's fine, but keep Maya out of it. She deserves your respect, not your smear campaigns. A ripple of surprised murmurs spread through the crowd. Maya's eyes brimmed with emotion. She sensed Christian was risking his deal, his reputation, by staging this public defense. But he pressed on, voice resonating with raw honesty. If you can't take me at my word, Liam, then so be it. I'll walk away from the deal. But don't you dare question Maya's integrity. Carl blinked, momentarily taken aback. He probably hadn't expected Christian to threaten to abandon a major investment. Liam, too, looked startled. Christian, he said, let's not be hasty. Christian cut him off. No, Liam, you demand honesty. This is me being honest. I'm tired of these insinuations. If backing out of your investment means protecting Maya's dignity, I'll do it. A hushed gasp passed among the onlookers. Maya's heart soared and sank all at once. He was willing to sacrifice everything he'd worked for to shield her from Carl's venom. She swallowed, blinking away tears. Carl quickly regrouped, letting out a derisive laugh. A noble show, but it doesn't prove anything except your flair for theatrics. Maya stepped forward, raising her chin. Maybe you're right. Maybe we can't prove anything to you, but we don't have to. Our relationship is ours. I refuse to be bullied, especially by someone who thrives on causing chaos. An uneasy silence followed. Liam studied Christian, then Maya, looking torn. Finally, he sighed, stepping in to diffuse the tension. All right, that's enough. Carl, your concerns are duly noted, but so is Christian's conviction. As for my investment, I won't be cowed by rumors. I'll make my own judgment. Carl offered a thin smile. Of course, I'm merely being thorough. Good night. He bowed slightly toward Christian and Maya, then walked off, leaving a chill in his wake. Liam's wife touched his arm gently, urging him to follow the departing crowd. We'll continue this conversation later, Liam said quietly, offering Christian a meaningful look before turning away. The onlookers dispersed, murmuring amongst themselves. Maya and Christian stood there, breathing hard. The confrontation had left them drained, but they were still standing. Maya's hand trembled as she clung to his. You really offered to walk away from the deal, she whispered. He nodded, his posture rigid. If that's what it takes to protect you from Carl's slander, yes. Emotion swelled in her chest, making it hard to breathe. This was more than just an arranged partnership. Beneath the contractual veneer, real loyalty and care flickered like a fragile flame. The night hadn't ended yet, but they had passed a critical point. He had revealed a willingness to sacrifice his ambition for her. She threaded her fingers through his, tears shining in her eyes. Christian, thank you. His gaze held hers, raw and earnest. You're worth it, Maya. In that moment, the rest of the gala faded away. People drifted off to admire artwork, chat about the drama, or simply head home. Maya and Christian stood in the midst of it, anchored by a truth that went beyond the farce. They had each other's backs, no matter what the consequences might be. In the wake of the public showdown, the gala wound down quickly for Maya and Christian. Some guests lingered to soak in the museum's ambience, but the two of them were emotionally spent. The possibility of further confrontation with Carl felt too draining. With unspoken agreement, they slipped out of the grand hall, passing under the museum's soaring arches and stepping into the crisp Texas night air. A few camera flashes popped in the distance, capturing guests departing in elegant gowns and tuxedos. Maya kept her head high, though relief coursed through her veins as they left the crowd behind. Their driver pulled up in the sleek black car, and Christian opened the door for her. She slid in, grateful to be away from prying eyes. Inside the car, a tense hush settled. The events of the night replayed in Maya's mind. Carl's accusations, Christian's impassioned defense, the shock rippling through the attendees. Her hands shook slightly, adrenaline still surging. She felt Christian's gaze on her, but she stared out the window, watching the city lights blur past. Eventually, he broke the silence. "Are you okay?" She hesitated, then nodded, swallowing hard. "I'm overwhelmed, but okay. Carl might have tarnished our image, but we didn't cave." Christian's mouth pressed into a thin line. "No, we didn't." After a beat, he added quietly, "I meant every word I said. You know, if Liam demands I prove our love by conventional measures, that's one thing, but I won't let Carl degrade you." His sincerity tugged at her heart. "I believe you," she whispered. "I just never expected you to give up everything for me." He shook his head. "I'm not giving up anything yet. But if it came to that, I'd rather lose a deal than let you be humiliated." Warmth flooded her chest, along with a flicker of worry. This was far beyond their initial contract's scope. The boundaries between real and pretend were dissolving. She wasn't sure if she should be relieved or terrified. "Christian," she ventured, voice soft, "what happens now, after tonight?" He sighed. "We wait and see how Liam reacts. Carl might keep spreading rumors, but I suspect Liam's no fool. He'll look at the bigger picture." He paused, exhaling slowly. "As for us, I don't know. But I know I want to keep you safe, whatever form this arrangement takes." They exchanged a glance brimming with unspoken possibilities, and the car fell silent once more. When they reached the penthouse, Christian helped her out of the car, placing a steadying hand on her lower back. She was still in her emerald gown, heels clicking on the polished floor of the building's lobby. The elevator ride up felt longer than usual, tension coiling tight. Upon arriving at the penthouse, she let out a sigh, rolling her shoulders. "I need to get out of this dress," she said, half laughing in exhaustion. He gave a gentle nod. "Take your time." "I'll be in the living room." A short while later, she emerged in a comfortable robe, hair loosened from its elaborate updo. Her feet ached and her mind whirled, but a sense of relief washed over her at shedding the formal attire. She found Christian near the wall of windows, gazing at the sprawling city. He'd removed his jacket and tie, undone the top button of his shirt. He looked as weary as she felt. "Long night," she murmured, stepping beside him. The lights of Austin sparkled below, a reminder of how small their problems might seem from a distance. He nodded. "Yes, but we made it through." Neither spoke for a moment, letting the quiet cradle them. Finally, she breathed. "You were incredible, standing up to Carl like that." His gaze flicked to her. "I couldn't let him tarnish you. Besides, I admire your resilience. You never backed down." He hesitated, then continued, "I know this started with me being rude at the diner, you feeling invisible. Now we're whatever we are. But I see you, Maya. I just want you to know that—" Her eyes welled. "That statement, 'I see you,' felt more precious than any fancy gift or smooth line." She swallowed emotion. "Thank you," she whispered, voice trembling. He reached for her hand. Gently, he lifted it, pressing his lips to her knuckles in a gesture that was both formal and profoundly intimate. She felt her breath hitch, the moment charged with an emotion neither of them named. A buzzing sound disrupted them. Christian's phone on the nearby table. He lowered her hand and stepped away to check the screen. She watched tension return to his shoulders, visible even from behind. "It's Liam," he said, glancing over. "He wants to talk." "Now." Her stomach clenched. "That can't be good. You think he's pulling out of the deal?" Christian shook his head uncertainly, pressing the phone to his ear. "Liam. Yes, I'm here." She couldn't hear the other side, but she watched Christian's expression shift from guarded to relieved, his brow unfurrowed slowly. When he ended the call, he faced her, eyes bright. "He said he admires our stand against Carl's tactics. He wants to proceed with the investment. He believes our relationship is real enough that he's willing to trust it." Maya's breath left her in a rush. That's amazing. So we still have his backing." Christian nodded, a rare smile tugging at his lips. "Yes." He said it's refreshing to see genuine emotion in a world of facades. He paused, searching her face. "Ironically, our outburst might have been the most convincing thing we've done all night." She let out a shaky laugh, tears of relief gathering in her eyes. "So, despite Carl's meddling, we succeed." "It appears so." He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling. "We'll finalize the contract soon, but this means everything for Cole Innovations." A wave of triumphant relief and confusion washed over Maya. They'd achieved the primary goal of their ruse, securing Liam Murphy's support. The $1 million she'd been promised now felt secondary to the profound change this journey had wrought in her. She thought of her notebooks, of her dream to write freely. She thought of Christian's transformation from cold, dismissive customer to a man who'd publicly defend her without hesitation. "It's done," she murmured, voice tinged with awe. "We did it." He took a careful step forward, as though testing the fragile distance between them. His next words were hushed, loaded with meaning. "Yes, and now we have to decide what we are, beyond the contract." Her heart pounded at the rawness in his gaze. The tension of the entire night lingered in the air, culminating in this question that neither had anticipated at the start. She felt overwhelmed by the swirl of possibilities, freedom from the diner, the chance to write, the chance to love, and a tentative bond with a man who once saw her as invisible. She squeezed his hand, letting her emotions show. "We face that decision together," she said softly, tears threatening once more. "No more farce, no more illusions." In the quiet penthouse, with the city's lights shimmering around them, they stood on the precipice of change. The contract had served its purpose, the danger from Carl momentarily deflected, and Liam's investment secure. Yet, a new chapter beckoned, a possibility of genuine connection, if they had the courage to claim it. Maya woke to soft morning light streaming through the tall windows, warming the penthouse living room where she'd dozed off after a long night of reflections. She blinked, momentarily disoriented by her surroundings. Sleek furniture and soaring city views were still startling compared to her old apartment. Stretching, she realized she felt lighter than she had in weeks. The burden of the gala, Carl's attacks, and the uncertainty with Liam Murphy's investment had finally lifted, replaced by a new question. What next? She stood, smoothing down the comfortable t-shirt she'd changed into late last night. A faint rumble of hunger reminded her she hadn't eaten since a hurried snack hours before bed. The penthouse was silent. Christian had likely already left for his morning meeting. He'd mentioned something about final negotiations with Liam. They were close to inking the formal agreement that would secure Cole Innovations' future. Maya wandered into the kitchen, rummaging for breakfast ingredients. Finding only a few basics, eggs, bread, coffee, she whipped together scrambled eggs and toast. As she ate, her gaze swept the open space. Living here had once felt like a fantasy. Now, she knew each polished corner by heart, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that her home, her real home, was somewhere else. She finished her meal, cleaned up, and thumbed through messages on her phone. A new text from Sophia flashed on the screen. "You alive, girl? Let me know when you can hang out. I've got juicy diner gossip." A pang of longing tightened Maya's chest. She missed her friend, missed the comforting banter they used to share. In the whirlwind of acting as Christian's fiancée, she'd barely seen Sophia in person. She typed a quick response, "I'm free today if you are. We need a long chat." Sophia's reply pinged back immediately. "Yes, diner at noon, my treat." Maya felt a rush of warmth. She quickly showered, changed into jeans and a simple blouse. Her old clothes, not the sleek, tailored outfits Christian's stylist had chosen. Slipping out of the penthouse, she waved a brief hello to the doorman, then caught a ride share to the familiar part of Austin she used to call home. The second she stepped onto the sidewalk near the Morning Star diner, nostalgia nearly overwhelmed her. The worn brick facade, the neon sign flickering in the daylight, the swirl of frying bacon smell spilling through the propped-open door. This place had shaped her daily life for so long. She felt a strange ache of comfort and sadness rolled into one. Inside, the lunchtime rush hummed with clanking silverware and the low murmur of chatter. Maya saw familiar faces, the regulars at the counter, Hank flipping burgers on the grill, and Sophia weaving through booths with expert grace. Catching sight of Maya, Sophia's eyes lit up. She hurried over, apron strings flying, and wrapped her friend in a tight hug. "God, I've missed you," Sophia blurted, stepping back to give Maya a once-over. "Look at you, fancy hair, glowing skin. Guess penthouse living agrees with you." Maya managed a small laugh. "It's been interesting, but I'm still me, Soph." They claimed a booth near the back. Sophia hollered an order of fries for both of them, then flopped down across from Maya. "Okay, spill. I've heard rumors you and that tech mogul fiancé of yours made quite a scene at some museum gala. People are talking." Maya winced, but she could only smile ruefully. "He defended me publicly, risking a major deal. It ended up working in his favor, ironically. Liam Murphy decided to invest. Carl's attempts to ruin Christian's reputation kind of backfired." Sophia's grin widened, though curiosity shone in her eyes. "So it's all legit? You're a real couple now?" The question made Maya pause. She thought of Christian's offer to forfeit the investment to protect her, the warmth in his eyes, the tenderness in his voice when he told her, "You matter to me, Maya." It felt real, yet their relationship had been born from a lie. "It's complicated," she admitted, meeting Sophia's gaze head-on. "We started off with a contract. He needed a fiancée, and I needed money for my writing dreams." Sophia's jaw dropped. "Seriously, then all of this?" Maya nodded, cheeks flushing. "I know it sounds awful, but somewhere along the line something changed. We started, well, caring about each other." She exhaled shakily. "Now, I'm stuck wondering how much of it is real. We've pretty much secured the investment. The contract's done its job. So do we just walk away?" Sophia reached across the table, squeezing Maya's hand. "Girl, you've always been guided by your heart. Have you asked yourself what you really want?" Maya swallowed, her throat tight. "I want to write. I want to be seen, heard, but I also want maybe something with Christian, if it's genuine. Is that crazy?" "Not crazy," Sophia said gently. "Risky, though. He's rich, driven. His world is intense. Can he make room for you, the real you?" Maya mulled that over, tears pricking behind her eyes. The real her wasn't just an elegant fiancée in designer heels. She was a poet, a waitress, a dreamer. "I hope so," she whispered. "But I'm not sure if I can keep living in that penthouse if it's all based on a lie. He risked losing the deal for me, but we haven't really talked about what happens next." "We've just been in survival mode." Sophia nodded. "Maybe it's time you take control, figure out where you stand, and if he's willing to meet you halfway, that's the difference between being a prop and being a partner." The server arrived with fries, and they paused to nibble. A flood of comfort washed over Maya, the familiar clamor of the diner reminding her of the life she once felt trapped in. Funny how she'd never realized the value of that familiarity until she was catapulted into luxury. Sophia chatted about news from work, regulars who asked about Maya, Hank's antics in the kitchen. Maya laughed, feeling warm nostalgia. It occurred to her that, despite her new world, a piece of her still belonged here. She could survive without the diner job now, but she couldn't erase the experiences and relationships it had given her. Before leaving, she pulled Sophia into another tight hug. "Thank you," she murmured, "for keeping me grounded." Sophia smiled. "Anytime. Now go figure out that fancy fiancé situation, and if he breaks your heart, let me know so I can slash his tires." Maya grinned through teary eyes, but as she stepped outside and felt the midday sun on her face, an odd mixture of hope and fear swirled within her. She was returning to the penthouse, but she wasn't returning the same. "I have to be honest with him," she told herself. "Either this becomes real on both sides, or it ends." It was a daunting prospect. Yet, as she hailed a car back to the gleaming high-rise, something inside her felt stronger, more certain than before. If she and Christian truly had a future, it had to be built on more than a contract and shared crisis. It had to honor who she was, where she came from, and who she hoped to be. Late that afternoon, Maya returned to the penthouse with a fresh resolve buzzing in her veins. She found a note in Christian's neat handwriting on the kitchen island. "I'll be at the office until late. Help yourself to anything you need. Let's talk tomorrow. Big day signing final papers with Liam." She studied the words, sensing his fatigue between the lines. The deal's culmination was at hand. Then what? The question weighed on her as she drifted into her bedroom, ignoring the fancy dresses lined up in the closet. Instead, she changed into casual leggings and a sweater, made herself a cup of tea, and settled at the small desk by the window. She opened her notebook, scanning old poems and fragments of stories. It had been ages since she'd written anything substantial. The last few weeks were consumed by etiquette drills, social events, and the emotional tug-of-war with Christian. She flipped to a blank page, heart pounding. If her future was to be shaped by her art, she needed to start now. At first, the words came slowly, hesitant lines about transformation and self-discovery. But gradually, the pen moved faster. She wrote about the diner's comforting clamor, about a penthouse that felt both cage and sanctuary, about a man whose icy facade hid an earnest soul. She wrote until her hand cramped, until tears blurred the words. She wrote until she lost track of time, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. A gentle knock at her door startled her. She jerked upright, realizing evening had fallen. Setting the pen aside, she called, "Yes?" Clara's familiar face peeked in. "Sorry to interrupt. Didn't realize you were busy. Christian texted me to check if you'd eaten. He'll be tied up late." Maya stretched, glancing at the clock. It was nearly 7. "I haven't eaten yet. Guess I got carried away." Clara smiled softly. "Writing?" "Yeah. It's been too long since I let myself sink into it." Maya hesitated, then asked, "Have you heard how Christian's meeting is going?" Clara shook her head. "He's in back-to-back negotiations, but it sounds positive. Liam's on board. They're just hammering out final details." Maya exhaled relief. She motioned to the pages spread over the desk. Now that the deal's almost done, I'm thinking about the next phase of my life. I've got savings from the contract, enough to focus on writing, maybe even enroll in a creative writing program at UT. Clara's expression brightened. That's wonderful, Maya. You should do it. Maya rose from her chair, rubbing her neck. I just need to make sure I'm not stuck playing pretend fiancé forever. You know, if Christian and I have something real, great. But if not... Clara nodded sympathetically. I understand. Look, I've seen Mr. Cole drive himself relentlessly for years. He doesn't open up easily, but I can tell he cares about you, whether he's ready to admit it or not. You've changed him. A surge of gratitude warmed Maya's chest. She glanced back at her notebook. Thank you for saying that. In any case, it's time I chart my own path. They decided to order in, opting for a casual pizza delivered right to the penthouse. Sitting with Clara at the kitchen island, Maya devoured cheesy slices and spoke more freely about her writing dreams. Clara encouraged her, sharing insights on local literary communities and events. Maya felt a spark she'd long suppressed, her passion for storytelling surging back to life. When dinner was done, Clara said goodnight. Maya lingered in the living room, restless. Checking the clock again, she noticed it was past 10. Christian still wasn't back. She paced a bit, mind churning. Maybe she should finalize her application for a writing course at the University of Texas. That step felt both terrifying and exhilarating, an official move toward her future. She settled onto the sofa with her laptop. Quickly navigating to the UT Austin website, she clicked on the creative writing program details, scanning admission requirements, deadlines, course descriptions. Her heartbeat quickened as she pictured herself in a classroom workshop, sharing her work, receiving critiques, growing as an artist. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, a text from Christian. Exhausted, but good news. Liam contract signed. Be home soon. Maya smiled, relief mingling with nervous anticipation. So it was done, the deal they'd fought so hard for. She tapped a reply. Great job. I'll be up. An hour later, she heard the penthouse door open. She closed the laptop and rose just as Christian walked in, shoulders sagging with weariness. His tie hung loose, and the subtle lines of stress edged his eyes, but a faint smile curved his lips. All done, he said, voice subdued. It's officially official. Cole Innovations has secured Murphy's investment. That's incredible, Maya breathed. She approached, unsure whether to offer a handshake or a hug. An awkward moment passed. Finally, she placed a gentle hand on his arm. Congratulations. He exhaled heavily, as though setting down a massive weight. Couldn't have done it without you. Literally, you were the linchpin. Maya's chest fluttered, but she mustered a small, wry grin. I suppose our acting skills weren't all that shabby. His gaze flickered with something deeper. Acting, maybe, but some of it was real, Maya. At least for me. She swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. The unspoken emotion between them pulsed like an undercurrent, too powerful to ignore. Christian, can we talk tomorrow, maybe when you're rested? He nodded. Yes, I'd like that. They stood in the quiet penthouse, the city lights sparkling through the windows. Relief mingled with anticipation, the promise of a conversation that might redefine their relationship. She watched him head to his bedroom, shoulders still tense but lighter than before. Turning off the living room lights, Maya returned to her suite, the UT Austin application page still glowing on her laptop screen. She gazed at it thoughtfully. The gateway to her dreams was just a form away, waiting for her. And now, With Carl defeated and Christian's deal sealed, she finally had the freedom and funds to pursue her calling in earnest. Early the next week, an email pinged in Maya's inbox, confirming a small poetry reading at Book People, a beloved independent bookstore in downtown Austin. She'd mustered the courage to submit one of her poems to an open call for local voices. Now she found herself scheduled to read tonight. Nervous excitement fluttered inside her like butterfly wings. Clara was the first to offer congratulations when Maya mentioned it over breakfast. "That's fantastic. You're letting people hear your words publicly. Is Christian going?" Maya shrugged, glancing at her phone. "He has a busy schedule, but I told him about it. No pressure, though. This is just a small event. I might not even be on stage for more than 5 minutes. Still, she couldn't deny a flicker of hope that he'd show up. They'd been tiptoeing around deeper conversations since the contract signing, as if neither quite knew how to transition from engaged for show to something more authentic. Their uneasy truce remained, buoyed by occasional heartfelt exchanges. That evening, Maya arrived at Book People wearing a casual black dress with ankle boots. The store's cozy atmosphere, wooden shelves crammed with titles, posters promoting local authors, instantly put her at ease. A small stage was set up near the fiction section, folding chairs arranged in neat rows. A handful of people had already taken seats, chatting quietly. She approached the makeshift check-in table, where a friendly bookstore employee handed her a small name tag. "You're reading second," he said. "Good luck." Exhaling shakily, she scanned the aisles, looking for any sign of Christian. None so far. She told herself she shouldn't be disappointed. He was a busy executive after all. Still, a pang of longing rippled through her. A few minutes later, the host, a local poet named Sam, stepped up to the microphone. "Welcome, everyone, to Book People's monthly local authors night. We're thrilled to showcase emerging voices in poetry and prose. Our second reader is Maya Rodriguez, sharing a poem that caught our attention for its vivid imagery and emotional honesty." Polite applause guided Maya to the mic. Her palms felt clammy. She adjusted the stand, heart thudding. Then she glanced around at the faces. Taking a calming breath, she began to read. "A hush of dawn splits the night where I step beyond the coffee-scented hustle, searching for my voice in a skyline of glass towers, and find it, trembling but fierce, in the soft pulse of possibility." The poem told her story in veiled metaphors. A waitress struggling with invisibility, a sudden shift into a world of power and money, and the discovery that her voice mattered. As she spoke, the hush of the audience wrapped around her. She felt her confidence build, line by line, until she closed with a quiet resolve. When she finished, applause filled the space. Flushed with pride, she stepped off the stage, handing the mic to the host. A couple of listeners gave her encouraging nods, and Sam offered a congratulatory handshake. For a moment, Maya stood near the shelves, heart still pounding, a radiant smile lighting her face. She'd done it. She'd shared her truth, however poetically disguised, and it felt exhilarating. A voice behind her made her spin around. "That was beautiful." Christian stood there, dressed in a casual blazer and jeans, hair slightly ruffled as if he'd hurried over. Her heart leapt. "You came," she breathed, biting back a grin. He nodded, stepping closer. "I wouldn't miss it. I raced here right after my last meeting." Emotions tangled in her chest. She barely had time to respond before another poet took the stage, and they both turned to listen politely. Once the new poem started, Christian leaned in, whispering by her ear, "Is there a place we can talk?" Maya gestured toward a quieter corner by the travel section. They slipped away, weaving past readers browsing shelves. Once somewhat secluded, she turned to face him, noticing the warmth in his gaze. "I'm really glad you made it," she said softly. He half smiled. "I'm sorry I missed the beginning, but I heard enough to know it was beautiful. You looked so alive up there, Maya." Her cheeks flushed. "Sharing my words is scary, but liberating. I want more of that in my life." Christian's expression turned contemplative. "Then do it. Take the classes you've talked about. Submit your work. You have the resources now, thanks to—" She gently placed a hand on his arm. "Thanks to you, yes. The money helps, but so does the belief you have in me." He released a slow breath, searching her eyes. "I do believe in you, and I don't want our relationship to overshadow your dreams. You're not just my fiancée, you're Maya Rodriguez, writer, poet, force of nature." Her throat constricted with emotion. "Thank you." He glanced around, lowering his voice. "Look, can we go somewhere after this? Grab coffee or a late bite to eat? Actually sit down, talk about us." A surge of mixed excitement and trepidation filled her. "Yes," she answered softly. "I'd like that." The reading event wound down soon after, and Maya took a moment to thank Sam for the opportunity. As the small crowd dispersed, she stepped out into the warm Texas night with Christian at her side. They found a nearby cafe that was still open, its neon sign humming in the dark. Seated in a quiet booth, they ordered coffee and pastries. For a moment, they simply savored the peaceful atmosphere. No corporate sharks, no high society watchers, no contracts forcing their hands. Just them, two people who'd navigated a bizarre journey together. She gathered her courage. "Christian, we've been through a lot. The investment is secured. The crisis is over. Where does that leave us?" His gaze rested on her face. "Earnest, I can't speak for you, but I don't want this to end. The contract was a means to a business goal, but in the process, I found someone I care about deeply." Her heart thumped. "Me too," she admitted, voice shaky. "But if we continue, it has to be real, honest, no more facade." He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "I agree. We put on a show for everyone else. But I don't want to pretend anymore. I want us to learn each other without obligations or transactions." A wave of relief washed over her, tears gathering in her eyes. "Then maybe we start fresh, date like normal people, figure out if we fit together." His fingers squeezed hers gently. "I'd like that. And if you decide you need your own space, somewhere more modest, while you do your writing, I'll respect it. The penthouse is always open to you, but it doesn't have to define you." She felt a knot in her chest loosen. "I might take you up on that. You're right, maybe I need to rediscover my own independence, but I don't want to shut you out either." A small laugh escaped him. "We'll find our balance." They lingered in that cafe for another hour, talking quietly about her plans to enroll at UT Austin, about the next steps for Cole Innovations, about the diner and old memories that had shaped them both. It felt strange, yet comforting to speak freely, absent the looming threat of exposure. They were two people trying to see if love could grow from a seed once planted in rocky soil. At the end of the night, he walked her home, not to the penthouse, but to a temporary sublet she'd arranged near campus, a simple place she could call her own while sorting through the noise of her life. He didn't protest, he understood, and when he kissed her goodnight at her doorstep, it felt simultaneously thrilling and calm, like stepping into a future where possibilities stretched wide as the Texas sky. Over the next few weeks, a gentle rhythm settled into Maya's life, neither the flurry of diner shifts nor the high-stakes social whirl of the penthouse. Instead, she balanced her mornings writing in her modest sublet sunlit corner, her afternoons attending a creative writing course at UT Austin, and her evenings exploring the city with Christian by her side. It felt surreal at first, sitting in a small classroom with fellow aspiring writers, discussing metaphor and voice. Maya sometimes felt a pang of imposter syndrome. After all, she'd spent months pretending to be someone else entirely. Yet, the first time she shared a poem aloud and received supportive feedback from classmates, she glimpsed her genuine strength. Meanwhile, Christian was changing too. Without the pressure of faking a perfect relationship, he seemed more relaxed, more open. He'd text her mid-afternoon just to say he was thinking of her, or he'd surprise her at the campus bookstore with coffee. They laughed about the mundane, traffic complaints, new restaurant openings, and debated things like the merits of modern poetry. Clara, still his trusted assistant, called Maya one day to propose an idea. A Coal Innovations community outreach program sponsoring emerging writers. "I saw how much the writing community means to you," Clara explained. "And Christian's been talking about redirecting some of the company's philanthropic budget. Would you want to help shape it?" Maya's heart fluttered. "That sounds incredible. I'd love to, if it's genuinely to help other writers, not just a publicity stunt." "It's genuine," Clara promised. "Christian says he wants the company to reflect values he's learned from you about giving voice to those who feel unseen. We can set up mentorships, scholarships, maybe even a writing residency." Tears prickled Maya's eyes. She never expected to influence Christian's company culture. "Count me in," she said quietly, a surge of hope filling her chest. Her relationship with Christian continued to deepen in surprising ways. Some nights, they shared dinner at her small kitchen table, laughing about how he'd bumbled his first attempts at cooking, or how she'd once shattered a coffee pot in the diner's rush. Other nights, they strolled along the river, talking about their childhoods, his rough edges from Houston, her dreams sparked in a cramped apartment. One evening, while gazing at the Austin skyline from a pedestrian bridge, Maya told him about losing her mother. She choked up describing how much her mother had championed her writing. "She always said, 'Your words matter, Maya.' I never truly believed it until recently." Christian wrapped an arm around her, drawing her close against the gentle breeze. "Your words do matter. To me, to the people who heard you at Book People, to anyone who needs a voice like yours." She rested her head against his shoulder, finding comfort in his solid presence. "I used to think I had to earn that validation by someone else's standards, but now I'm realizing I can write just because I love it." He pressed a tender kiss to the top of her head. "I've learned something too, that success without purpose or connection feels hollow. You showed me that." Their bond felt unlike anything Maya had experienced, no longer a hurried arrangement to impress outsiders, but a steady, mutual choice to support one another's growth. She was still discovering the nuances of his drive, his vulnerability, and he was learning the depth of her passions, her fears. Occasionally, Carl Peterson's name drifted through business circles, but he seemed to have fallen back, his attempt at sabotage foiled. Liam Murphy's investment thrived, granting Christian the security he'd craved. He maintained his intense work ethic, but he also seemed more willing to delegate, to breathe. On a balmy Saturday afternoon, Maya joined Christian at a community reading event Coal Innovations sponsored. She watched young, aspiring poets step up to the mic, their voices trembling yet vibrant with potential. Standing beside Christian, she sensed his pride in the venture, a subtle nod to the transformation they both had undergone. After one teenager's heartfelt performance, Christian leaned closer to Maya. "This is everything we hoped for, isn't it?" She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "Yes, a space for people like me, people who didn't think anyone would listen." He reached for her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "I'd like to keep building on this. You can help shape the future for these young writers. Maybe we could even set up a scholarship in your mother's name, if you're open to it." Emotions welled up, nearly overwhelming her. She managed to whisper, "That would mean the world to me." The crowd applauded the next reading, a ripple of gratitude filling the room. Maya scanned the faces, recalling her own nerves at that book people event. It struck her that she'd come so far from that shy waitress with hidden notebooks, and Christian, no longer the aloof millionaire who barked orders, stood beside her, fully present, gazing at the stage with genuine admiration. When the readings concluded, they mingled with attendees. Maya encouraged a timid high school student who clutched a sheaf of handwritten poems. She recognized herself in the girl's wide eyes and trembling grip. "Keep writing," Maya urged, warmth in her voice. "Your words matter, even if you're the only one who knows it at first. Don't stop." On the car ride home, she rested her head on Christian's shoulder. "Thank you," she murmured, "for believing in the power of words, and for believing in me." He pressed his lips to her hair, a tender gesture that still thrilled her. "Thank you, Maya, for showing me what really matters." The city lights flickered past, and though traffic occasionally snarled, it no longer bothered either of them. They had found a tranquility in working together, not just for their own benefit, but for something bigger. Each day, their shared life felt more genuine, more vibrant, like a painting gradually revealing itself in layers of color and meaning. Several months had passed since the night of the gala. The oppressive summer heat had mellowed into a mild autumn, leaves rustling along Austin's tree-lined streets. The transformation felt symbolic to Maya. Her life had settled into a new equilibrium, one that balanced her personal growth with a deepening relationship. She still rented her cozy sublet near campus, dedicating hours each day to her creative writing classes. She'd already submitted a few poems to literary magazines, receiving one acceptance that left her weeping with joy. Christian remained at the helm of Cole Innovations, busier than ever, but somehow more grounded, more connected to the people around him. Early one weekend, they met at a small cafe by the lake, a table outside affording them a peaceful view of sun-dappled water. Maya stirred her latte, stealing glances at Christian, who seemed preoccupied. A hint of tension furrowed his brow. "You okay?" she asked, concerned. "You look like something's on your mind." He exhaled slowly. "I've been thinking about us." Her stomach fluttered, old insecurities bubbling up, but she forced herself to stay calm. "And," he reached across the table, taking her hand, "there was a time when I only saw people as assets or liabilities. You showed me that real success involves connections, empathy. I want to make more room in my life for that, for you." She squeezed his hand, heart thudding. "I want that too. But I also need my independence, my writing, my sense of self. I can't lose that again." He nodded, eyes sincere. "I would never ask you to. I want to add to your life, not consume it." He paused, lips curving into a faint smile. "I was thinking maybe we could share a home, but not the penthouse. Someplace new, that's ours instead of just mine, but only if you're ready." Her breath caught. The idea filled her with a mixture of excitement and caution. She pictured them exploring a quiet house in a neighborhood where she could still attend classes and he could commute to the office. Maybe an extra room could become her writing studio. The thought sent warmth flooding her chest, but she also recalled how quickly they'd rushed into living together before. "I love that you want a fresh start," she said softly. "But let me finish this semester, okay? Let's give ourselves time to look at options without pressure. I'm all in for building a real life together, but at a pace we both can handle." He nodded, relief evident. "Absolutely, I can wait." "I'm done rushing you into anything." They finished their coffees, watching ducks glide across the lake. Peaceful silence enveloped them. After a while, he rose to pay the bill, returning with a small grin. "I have a surprise for you, though. No pressure, just something you might enjoy." Intrigued, Maya followed him to the car. The drive was short, winding through streets she recognized from her childhood. Her heart jolted when she realized they were near her old apartment building, the place she'd lived in before the $1 million check changed her trajectory. He pulled up beside a renovated community center. A modest banner out front read, "Young Writers Program, sponsored by Cole Innovations." The building was newly painted, big windows letting in natural light. Stepping out of the car, Christian guided her inside. A small reading room, lined with shelves of donated books, greeted them. Desks and chairs were arranged for workshops. Posters of famous authors graced the walls. Maya recognized quotes from Maya Angelou, Langston Hughes, Toni Morrison. "How?" she breathed, tears pricking her eyes. He offered a gentle smile. "We used some of Cole Innovations' charitable funds to create a dedicated space for aspiring writers. We're partnering with local schools, offering afternoon programs and weekend workshops. I hoped you'd help run some sessions when you can, maybe teach a workshop or two." She choked up, memory flooding her of how alone she'd felt once. Scribbling poems in the margins of her diner notepad. "This is amazing. You're giving kids, people, access to something I only dreamed about." He touched her shoulder. "You inspired it, your story, your drive. Even if our engagement started off fake, the impact you've had on me, on the company, that's real." Overcome, Maya threw her arms around him, hugging him tight. "Thank you," she whispered, voice trembling with gratitude. When she finally pulled back, he brushed a tear from her cheek. "This is our shared legacy, I think. An elixir of truth, if you will, that came from everything we've been through." She nodded, recalling the rush of events that led to this moment, the $1 million check, the staged relationship, the nights spent learning each other's secrets, the public confrontation at the gala. It all felt distant, as though it belonged to another lifetime. Yet without those trials, they might never have reached this point of genuine connection. They wandered through the center, envisioning future workshops, reading events, maybe even a tiny library of local authors' works. Each room bristled with possibility. Maya's chest swelled with pride as she imagined guiding young writers, helping them see their words as a bridge to the world. Outside, the autumn sun shone bright. Christian led her to a small courtyard garden. A plaque on a bench caught her eye. "In honor of those who dare to dream." Emotion welled up again. She turned to Christian, heart full. "This is more than I ever expected from that day you left a $1 million check on the diner table." He chuckled softly. "Me too. I never planned on seeing you as anything but a means to an end. Now, you're—" He paused, gaze steady. "You're my future, if you'll have me." A wave of warmth, of certainty, rushed through her. "Yes," she whispered. "I will." They stood there, hands intertwined, the garden's flowers swaying in a gentle breeze. Time seemed to slow, the two of them absorbing this new reality. They'd forged a bond shaped by shared adversity, honest confessions, and the courage to grow. Maya closed her eyes, breathing in the clean air. She thought of her mother's words, "Never stop believing in your own voice," and realized she was finally living that truth. Her writing was blossoming, her heart was open, and her life was no longer defined by false appearances, but by genuine purpose. Opening her eyes, she smiled at Christian, then at the plaque that honored dreamers like her. In that moment, she felt the fullness of what they'd achieved, an elixir of truth and love, brewed from unexpected beginnings. They weren't bound by a contract anymore, but by choice, by trust, and by a vision of what they could create together in a world where both their voices mattered. Their story wouldn't end here. It was only beginning, a shared journey of compassion and creativity, anchored in the reality they'd built from a single, surprising request. And as they left the courtyard, hand in hand, Maya couldn't help but feel her life had finally, truly begun. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.